All right, good afternoon, everybody. We're calling this meeting to order. This is the strategic planning session. And Madam Clerk, if you wouldn't mind, would you please do roll call?
Gotta hit this thing.
Who have I got? Councilmember Baldino.
Present.
It's on, but you won't be able to hear it.
It's picking up everything.
It's going to the TV, yeah. This is bad.
Councilmember Giroux.
Here.
Councilmember Perstech. Here. Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel.
Here.
Mayor Boyles.
Here. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Yep.
So just FYI, these mics apparently are live mic'd at all times. And this is not being broadcast live. It's being recorded, or is it broadcast live also? Recorded. Okay. Thank you. So let's see. Who would like to lead the Pledge of Allegiance? Any volunteers?
I'll do it.
Oh, Mrs. Voss was first. Sorry.
Please rise. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mrs. Voss. Just for that, you don't have to clean the chalkboards later after class, okay? All right, so we have public communications, and then we're pretty much going to turn it over to the facilitator. And so public comments, now is the time and place for anyone that would like to address this body for strategic planning. Yeah, Mrs. Argy. I think they want you at the dais.
Yep, okay. Oh, hello. Really quick, I know you don't have your phone.
I have my
Get your phone. Your phone on.
I got the phone.
Okay, I'll make this quick because I know you guys have a very, very long afternoon and day ahead of you. My name is Tracy Miller-Zarnicki. I serve in the capacity of Chair of the Environmental Committee. I'm here to say something many of you have heard me say before, so apologies if this is not new. But I'm just really here to say the word environmental probably as much as I can in my couple minutes, because by me saying it a lot, I'm hoping it infuses into your planning going forward, because it's really not in there a lot. So as you know, your residents seem to be most consistently vocal and troubled, genuinely so, by environmental issues that take place in our city. Mostly in the last 2 years, you've heard them speak to Hyperion, but in the years and decades before, you've heard many other issues as well. I know you know this because Goal 2C says to develop a long-term strategy to hold large-scale neighboring municipal operations accountable for environmental violations that place the quality of life and health of residents and businesses at risk. It was interesting for me to read that, and actually the status point that follows that up that says that Public Works is working with the Environmental Committee to develop this long-term strategy and work plan, because that's not really the way we've been utilized. And I just want to say that you may recall we had a member quit over this incident, this way of managing things in the wake of the Hyperion disaster. You know, some of us on the committee were directly reprimanded and shut down for trying to throw some constructive ideas into the discussions that were happening in the wake of that. I love that some of those suggestions are happening now, but this is almost 2 years ago. Anyway, I'm here to suggest that you please consider hiring an on-staff environmental director to stay on top of constant issues, to help problem-solve concerns before they become problems, and to undo things that can be done better. Don't get me wrong, Elias is amazing. We're super grateful he's here, and he would do all the green work he could, but being an environmental watchdog is not part of his already demanding job, and it shouldn't be an adjunct duty for him or anyone else that's already overworked, nor to be left to a volunteer committee that meets once a month. I would like to propose that the city of Elsington be more intentionally environmentally focused, considering the constant surrounds that we have here. We're a small community that does not benefit from regular agency, higher agency attention, because we are not underserved in the way that other communities in Los Angeles are. And yet we are completely surrounded by impingements that are not going away, and in fact may get more complicated with Scattergood doing the transition to hydrogen in the near future. This staff position might possibly be paid by shifting funds from the current Hyperion legislation after the dust settles and you don't need the lobbyist and you don't need the wastewater consultant. Perhaps that's where the money could come from. Or, I mean, actually I should mention in that, I know a concern of council is depending too much on consultants. So here's a way to take two and put them into a staff person instead. Or consider reworking the developer funding that is earmarked for arts use into a broader community benefit category so that you have flexibility to address important issues that support your community on other levels. Being more environmentally proactive actually supports other council opinions that were expressed in your packet, including set the stage for El Segundo for the next 100 years, leave the city in a better spot than it was, and truly it comes down to if you can't sustain healthy living in an environmental sense here, all 57 pages of your packet are for naught. So please do consider thinking about environmental things moving forward. Appreciate your time and all the work you do for our city. It is really greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Arnicky. Anyone else? Public comments? Okay, that concludes public communications. So we've got the strategic planning workshop. This is to discuss the city's current strategic goals and top priorities for fiscal year 2022-2023 through 2026. It should be 2025-26, right? 2025-2026. So I'm going to turn it over to Henry, our facilitator. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to start, if I may, by introducing myself. I'm Henry Garcia with Human Resources Dynamics and Performance Management. This is Rhonda Garcia, also from the same firm. You would know us better as husband and wife. So we're here, so be careful because the detailed person is in the room. The real detailed person is in the room. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to the city manager, Daryl George, for some opening comments. We'll do some introductions, and then I'll go over expectations for the day. 3.5 hours, rapid 3.5 hours.
Thank you, Henry. I did ask Henry to take off his Laker jacket. I hope you guys will. The Celtics, I would like to see the Celtics and Lakers again. But anyway, thank you, Henry. On behalf of, well, first of all, thank you everyone for coming this afternoon. I can't believe it's been a year. I mean, I started about a year ago. I think my first meeting as the interim city manager was about a year ago when we did this. And this is, from a staffing standpoint, from the E-team, creating a strategic plan is really the building blocks that we emanate from. We revisit this document, our own work plan comes from this. We meet once a week at regular E-team meetings. We discuss what's the components of this. So it's a really good working document for us as staff, and it really helps us kind of bridge, bridge the communication between staff and the council. So we really look forward to everyone's input today. The strategic plan is a working document. It's a kind of a mid to long range plan, but it does need to be adjusted every now and then, whether it's monthly, yearly, however. This is a working document. Priorities are changing, projects are changing, unforeseen circumstances develop in the course of our day-to-day work life, and today gives us an opportunity to just all come together, sit down, look at our plan, where we've come in a year, where we want to go in the next 2 to 3 years, and really how we can do a better job as staff and a council to create a significant quality of life here in El Segundo. So again, thank you for everyone for being here. Thank you, Henry. Rhonda, appreciate it. Looking forward to the few hours we have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor, with your permission, can I proceed? Great. I'd like to start, for the benefit of the recording that we're doing here, with some introductions. Starting with you, we'll go around the table, and we'll do that quickly.
Yeah, Drew Boyles, Mayor of El Segundo.
Again, Daryl George, City Manager.
Mark Hensley, City Attorney.
Alan Mancini, Director of Recreation, Park and Libraries.
Robert Espinosa, Interim Fire Chief.
Joel Christek, Council Member.
Elias Sesson, Public Works Director.
Jose Calderon, IT Director.
Barbara Voss, Deputy City Manager.
Jaime Bermudez, Police Chief.
Ryan Baldino, Council Member.
Michael Allen, Community Development Director.
Rebecca Reddick, Human Resources Director.
Lance Giroux, Council Member.
David Kane, interim CFO.
And Chris Pemmichel, the Mayor Pro Tem.
Tracy Weaver, City Clerk.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, Henry, can I make one?
Absolutely, Mayor.
I would just be remiss, I was looking around the room. Carol, when we started this in 2016, first strategic planning session that we have been, it's been a while since we've done it, several years.
I think it's been many, many years.
Yeah, if you look around this room, every department head is different than in 2016, with the exception of an elected official here, Tracy, and Mark Hensley, city attorney here. When did you come on board? 2016? 2015.
I was
So
in
you
a
were a very
department,
different role.
yeah.
Very different role.
Yeah.
So this is to me a great representation of the growth that the city has undergone in the last, it's been, I guess, 7 years now. When you think about 2016, financial reserves were not nearly what they are today. We had major pension concerns that started when we started working with CalPERS. That one's going blank. That's what I'm talking about. How can I forget CalPERS? We started working with CalPERS, and then Chris Pimentel, and who was on your ad hoc committee?
Scott Nickel.
Scott Nickel started working on the pension bond. So we made a lot of great decisions. So, but it started with the strategic plan back in 2016. We made some really good, sound financial decisions, and not all of those have been easy decisions. And frankly, some people don't like the decisions that we made. There's been residents that haven't liked some decisions we made, like shutting down the beach shuttle initially and then converting it to private, making more fiscally sound decisions. The business community as well, 1% for the arts, other things like that. We've made some decisions that we think are in the best interest of this community. And I just wanted to acknowledge how much we've accomplished in 7 years, because we are in a much different place financially. And Joe Lilio is no longer here. He's going to do great things in Burbank. But Joe was instrumental as well in getting us to this place where we have a solid foundation now. And when you look at the strategic plan, it's really not that much different than 2016. I mean, we've accomplished a lot, but if you think about the 5 key focusers, the 5 strategic priorities, those are fundamentally the same. And to me, that is a sign of a good strategic plan, is you're not shifting direction frequently. You're going towards a general direction and some of the priorities changing over time. So I just want to acknowledge you.
And I also want to mention, you know, when we first started this 6 years ago, we were really behind in IT, and a lot of our focus was on IT and development and strategizing and prioritizing where we were going to put our efforts and focus. And so at the time there was a little bit, I don't want to say mistrust, but there wasn't as much synergy as there is today in the common good of the city. So I just want to commend everybody for really stepping up and really looking at the big picture of the city and what's best for the city. And we've really been able to move forward a lot of things, not just in IT, but in just prioritization of process and change. So thank you to everybody for doing that, because we are definitely in a different place today.
Thanks, Carol.
Absolutely. I think that's great news, is the fact that the evolution of where you are at is in a positive direction. And so let me begin with the expectation. The expectation today is that we are renewing and refreshing the existing 51 strategies. Now, you have an opportunity to create. And so let me tell you the agenda for today, so from a time sequence, because the times aren't listed here. So hopefully, I will be doing the staff and council interview results at 1:45. We are way ahead of that, so I hope to be starting that sooner. So if you're on, as council member asked me, are we over or under? We're under right now.
Are you saying I have more time to speak?
Graciously, I'm going to leave that up to you. So the idea is I will do that update of what the commonalities are. Why is that important? Because between what you did in June of 22 to where you're at today, there could be some slight differences, slight changes in emphasis, but the evolution, as the mayor has stated at the very beginning, is that there's progress. So we need to kind of see whether there's some tweaking. So the expectation today is refresh and renew. And if you need to create something, we're going to stick to the 3 C's you see on the agenda, which is how are we going to close out, what you're comfortable with, what we're going to carry forward, and what we're going to create as new strategies. That hopefully is going to take about an hour or so. And the way it's going to look, as an example, is that we've got all 5 goals and each of the strategies that are listed. And then you're going to see something that says complete or continuing. We're going to start with that. What's complete for the mayor and council, what's continuing. And what is in red is the top 10 priorities you listed from the 22 strategic plan, so that you get a chance to see in your packet is the staff update of how they see complete or continuing in a conversation. We're going to go through each one. So what does that really mean in a couple of hours? For 51 plus items, it's about 2 minutes or less. So the staff is going to give like a 30-second soundbite for each item, and then the council will get to decide, depending on their query or comfortableness, does that done or does it carry forward? Remember, there's no rights or wrong. Is it complete or does it carry forward? And then at the end of that exercise, at the end of each goal, complete or carry forward, we're going to move the document over to the wall and we're going to create a sheet that says create. Is there something that you want to add that's new to the existing goal? For example, enhance customer service, diversity, equity, inclusion, and communication. After you've done what's complete and carry, is there anything you want to create under that goal? Does that make sense? It's going to be a rapid conversation, or as I've always said to many council members, you need to be brief, be bold, be done. And the staff, you need to be even briefer, even clearer, so that it's understood. That's challenging. So from that, at the conclusion of that particular exercise, we're going to do a quick dot exercise. And they go, oh, dots, what do they mean? Well, the council members are going to get 2 red dots, and you get to decide what you're going to place between goal 1 through 5. Now, the goal here is you had 10 priorities. We'd like to replace it with another 10, but we don't want 60, because the city manager will say we'll have capacity infrastructure issues to be able to accomplish it. Now, only the mayor or council can say, Henry, good try, we want a little bit more than 10. And obviously the prerogative is the mayor and council's. But it is a goal that if you're comfortable with the top 10, we'll replace 10 with a new 10 or a carryover, depending on how you see them. Does that make sense? If it doesn't, forever hold your peace on that. So then we'll be done. The goal, just so you know, between Celtics and Lakers, the rivalry in this room, we will clearly be done before tip-off tonight. Clearly. And then the clerk is given pressure saying, oh, you need to be done even sooner because I need to set up for closed session. So are you ready? It's game on. And that's where we're going to go. So we're going to start with expectations. Rhonda's going to scribe. You're going to ask why. Because when we go home, we cannot have an argument about she can't read my writing. So for those that are gender sensitive, it's all about survivability when we put together the document for you. So, Mayor, expectations for today.
Alignment.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Same, clarity and focus.
I'm more hierarchical, so I always start in that order. Council member.
Go over to Carol.
Carol.
Prioritization.
I should have gone. They got the top 4, so I'm good with any one of those.
Yeah.
I would like to see some clear objectives out of this.
Anything else from the mayor and council? Clear objectives is a good message. So what will happen when all of this is done is my suggestion will be to the city manager that we create an action plan from the 10 new priorities or some combination thereof that you create that represents who's going to do what, when, what the funding is, and what the timeline for it is, the objectives. What does it mean once we have prioritized, and when can we expect to see it?
I have one in more buy-in.
Buy-in.
We all have to do it.
Okay.
Well, I mean, obviously, those are all perfect, but I would also add maybe participation as an objective, as an expectation, that everyone participate.
Okay.
So they're not perfect.
That's true.
Now, did you mean like from the E-team council members? Okay. Okay. Anything else? Okay, you're really working on the under today. All right, off we go into the interview results. Are you ready?
Yep.
Let's talk about that. Why do we do it? Well, it's a moment in time for almost 1 year ago. As things change, what are people looking at? Does the council and the staff still see some alignment on some of the existing strategies and goals? But what did the refresh tell us? So let me kind of share that for the mayor and council as well as the audience, because I think it's important. Because the mayor started with something very fundamental, and that is there's a lot of growth in things that have occurred. And so what does that mean, and can you verify that? The interview process verifies that, in fact, we have some continuum of things that we share in common. So question one, what are the things that the city of El Segundo is doing well? You can kind of see it in its shaded color, vision, future, focus, priorities on leadership. There was some commonality about looking at the big picture on the staff side. How staff is starting to look not only at succession planning, but starting to look at 5 years in terms of IT initiatives. Leadership is working well on the council side. More flexibility in accommodation of things. We're poised to be successful in our endeavors. On the staff side, long-term planning. The city is trying to move in a progressive direction. How do we reinvent itself, and how do we get the city council moving forward in a positive direction? You know, you heard public comment. Public comment was also participative in a sense of ideas and suggestions that you may want to undertake. It's new to me, but the fact that there was at least a conscious attempt to keep revisiting means engagement. Engagement will come up for you in terms of communication with the public as a commonality. Ever more important that that continuum of bridging community expectations and conversation with the council continue. So there's a lot there on vision, future, and focus, which I think has commonality. One that always gets overlooked because it's always you have great ideas but you have no money is funding resources and infrastructure. On the city side, finances and infrastructure, the city is financially sound in terms of its decision making, bringing in revenue and where possible, a good CIP program. And CIP and projects are the theme, I will tell you. Get things done, parks, the pool. There is a hardcore infrastructure theme in this document. On the council side, overall doing a good job financially with the budget, refinancing of pension obligations, financial sustainability. Under community service and inclusiveness, trying to be more inclusive with the residents, a safe, clean community on the city side, how we offer great events and programs. On the council side, customer service and planning has improved greatly. What am I saying? Not only from funding to vision to community service and inclusiveness to economic development, the next topic. The color shades tell us that the mayor's correct in the assumption that the evolution of togetherness and progress is just that word. Not to be confused between ideological difference, prioritization difference, or what comes first in terms of daily tasks. Those are fundamentally also a part of the process, but in the big picture of public policy, viewing and visioning, the alignment appears in this question, and it will throughout all of them, to be in somewhat of an alignment. Communication with the community, engagement internal and external, you can kind of see that there's an emphasis, as one of our council members has talked about, not only in terms of IT, but the council's commitment to how do we engage, how do we actively engage, how do we survey, how do we make sure that we are in tune of upcoming events, knowing what's occurring, and most important of all, how do you maintain a participative process with your community? And people will look at me and go, how boring is that? I am your classic resident. When I go home, I could care less what the mayor and council sends me. I will never read it. She will read it. The future councilwoman will read it. Why? Because I work with the electeds, and it's just like every day, I'm not picking it up under any circumstances. That doesn't mean it's bad or good. It just means I'm representative of what is a lot in our communities. When you say, do more, do more, do more, you get people like me saying, you can do it all, but she's still going to read it. I'm going to read the Celtics-Lakers. That's what I'm going to read. Why is that important? Because you can't overemphasize. Can you reach 100%? The answer is no. But you can reach the ability to engage. That's a very different process. And the people that want to do that are here today and have spoken and take the time to do that. And lastly, there's a commonality here that's important, and I don't want to underscore because it comes up a lot. Employee labor relations and organizational development. There's the concept of how we rebuild trust, how we engage employees, how we allocate resources to recruiting and staffing, and how we support department enhancements to improve services. There is this concept of morale, where it's at and how it improves and how the council participates in it. It is still there. It doesn't mean it goes away, but it's still on our radar. Question 2, what are the areas you feel that could be improved? On both sides, there was a conversation about employee labor relations and organizational development. And morale on the council side, looking at the organizational culture and how to improve it so we can become an employer of choice. You know, I got to tell you, there's only one way you do that, and that is what's the plan where people want to come to an incredible community. Why do I say that? Rhonda and I drive here all the time and go, we can live here. And then you know the answer, but we can't buy here. And then what we wind up being satisfied by eating, walking around, going home. Same thing when you're recruiting. You can't beat the weather, you can't beat the environment, you can't beat a lot of things here. So then the question is, to somebody like me, now you got to be able to prove it. Can you recruit them? Can you retain them? Can you make it even better? And the mayor said the most important thing, there's just a few of you here. It's not because it's a bad place. We come a lot. This is a great place. So if you're working here, what's going to keep you here? What's going to keep you here? Administrative improvements and accountability, it's the same menagerie everywhere. Red tape and bureaucracy. How do we get things done? How do we manage the council priorities on the staff side? There is a comment about relying far too much on consultants or experts. How we rely more on common sense. How we have true performance management systems in place to measure the things in such a way that the council and the community can say, there's a metric I can live with. But when you're making sausages, sometimes it's an ugly process. And sometimes not everything is lined up in terms of metrics. The key is to not let go of that soundbite, but how you continue to strive to share the one thing we all want from the public, and myself included, and that is, what am I getting for it? And what's the accountability? And can I measure it in a way that says, I clearly see that? That's a tall task, and I think this group is up for that challenge more than ever before. Communications comes back again. How do we do that? How do we educate the community on how the city runs? The staffing resources necessary to do the job. On the council side, how we continue to streamline communications. It's only going to be successful if there's organizational buy-in. You can kind of see there's a redundancies of themes, which means your refresh here is picking up on some of the things you're familiar with. Because if it was new surprises, then the mayor's statement would be incorrect. But it's a refresh to validate what he said. It really is. Then some of you have said that in the interview process. I want to go on to question 3, deeper. What are the challenges? On the staff side, the employee relationship and organizational development. How do we attract and retain? How do we create that organizational training and development programs? How do we attract higher competency levels? We know about the civil service system. How do we get around some of those issues? How do we address employee morale? Constant turnover. I don't know, remember the vacancy rate, but it's a double-digit number, I think. Is it not, Rebecca? Is it like 10 or 11% vacancy?
I don't have the exact number, but it is significant.
Yeah. It's not reflective of anything except what I will tell you. You already know. When it takes Rhonda 2.5 hours to go here, and we're going to leave at 4:30, I guarantee my pension retirement that we won't get home before 8 o'clock. It's just location, but it's a beautiful location. Employee on the council side, our sense of pride is developing. That's a powerful statement. labor relations, union relationships, flexibility to hire the right person for the right job, concerns about how nimble and flexible we are, they're important in terms of some of the challenges. On page 7, funding resources come back. The council is very clear. This is for the staff. It's very clear. Capital improvement projects. Elias, there's going to be a lot of baklava you're going to be serving. They want projects, projects, projects. There's not going to be a Thanksgiving for you. It's just, you can see it. You can see it. Ballparks, park space, pools, finding revenue, thinking about the upcoming recession, how it affects the economy. These are hard topics, but they're hard infrastructure topics of clarity. Where do we go? On the city side, how would we fund infrastructure? What does that look like? The availability of our resources. And as Carol talked about in our private interview, along with everyone else, you have conflicting priorities. How do we make that happen? How do we make it happen today? The DOT is another step of today, but I never want you to feel it's cement. It's the step for today. And only you can decide how wet the shoes are in terms of how you want those priorities to really harden. Economic development and growth and branding. You can see that we're really concerned about the east side. What's happening there? Housing elements. What are we doing with affordable housing elements? Commercial office space, and what does that mean in that shrinking footprint that is occurring since more people are working from the home? How do we do it? And so these commonalities now for the top 5 challenges include up to and including communication and community engagement. And while the council didn't comment on this particular one, it did at other places. I'm going through these quickly. Question 4, what's the one thing the city should consider changing? You can kind of see again under administration improvements and accountability, think about the personal rules and regulations, taking them out of the municipal code, handcuffed by civil service. The civil service system needs to be addressed. How do we modernize our environment? How do we streamline the bureaucracy? On the council side, overuse of consultants and experts, the city manager's structure and willingness to hire outside of the organization and explore changes. You're seeing some commonality, but how do you do it? The nuts and bolts. Vision, spending time prioritizing the services and projects. In the council side, the need to implement and consistently challenge ourselves to define and redefine our goals. At the policy level, it's there. The question is, how do you bring it to life? And you bring it to life through the action plan of who, what, when, and where. And that's what you hold the city manager accountable for. We did this workshop, when can I expect to see it? And what are the resources attached to it? I'm kind of going through question 4 to question 5. What's the one thing we can do better? It's the one topic that always comes up. We're all trolling for revenue. What does it mean? How do we finance the improvements? I think you've got measure R and M in this city. And you've got, is it R and M? You've got 2 transportation side. And then, you've got your traditional funding sources. But are there other initiatives that you can do? Is there appetite for some of those new initiatives that might be on the agenda? I don't know, but it's something to talk about, and it's certainly here. And of course, on the council side, you have fire, public works, parks, and recreation needs more support. And so that conversation may or may not have to come up today. How do you do that? And you can kind of see the constant theme again on communication and community. And in question 6, which I think is the deepest question, your personal goals and interests and priorities. And you can kind of see, once again, funding, resources, and infrastructure more than ever come up. And so what's the pattern when you step back as you get into question 6? You can see funding, you can see organizational development, you can see economic development, you can see vision, you can see community engagement. You can see all of these things come to the big 5 or 6. They're not new because they shouldn't be new if you're still on the same ship moving to progress. But the key to progress is it 2 knots? Is it 3 knots? Is it 10 knots when you're going? How fast can you move? And does everybody want to stay on the same ship, going the same speed? And you can kind of see economic development and branding, community engagement and vision again become the continual themes here. The last question, which is question 7 about priorities, you can see it gets heavy on the staff side in terms of employee labor relations and organizational development. But it's a constant theme I believe most of you are familiar with, and that is retention, attraction, morale, salary, all the things that you know are real still come back in terms of a concern and expectation that we should try to address these things. And then, of course, funding. You can see on the staff side, is there an appetite for a sales tax measure? How do we do that? How do we get the pool working on the council side? Talking about getting the plunge done, getting the CIP done, getting the parks done. I come back to you, Elias. It looks like no Thanksgiving. Projects, projects, projects.
I know.
That's why he's sitting next to me.
That's why. And so I went through those very quickly, but you can kind of see when you step back, why did we do it? Because when you renew and refresh, is there anything that became unexpected? And the answer, I believe, is that it's a continuum of what you have always wanted to see, depending on who the manager was here. I think it's the infrastructure projects, and Mayor, you're free to help me here. It's still infrastructure. It's still parks and open space. It's still economic development. You tweaked 5 goals, but when we get underneath them, they're fundamentally sound in terms of a community wanting progress and moving forward in unison. And in today's economic world, and you know this through other communities, it's never been more divisive. It's never been more divisive, whether it's 5 or 7. And you have commonality here. And when we refresh, you're going to validate that. You're going to validate that. So I'm going to stop here on the interview and ask the mayor or council members if they have any thoughts to my comments before we continue. And I'll begin with the mayor.
Mayor Pro Tem. Chris, I think that.
No, I think that you're right. Thematically, I don't think we're going to have any broad changes today. I think there'll likely be some subordinate tasks on here, but I think the big themes are likely to be consistent, and I think that probably is a good thing.
Okay.
Lance, Ryan, Carol?
I concur.
Okay. Ryan?
I think one thing to add might be that seeing all the notifications of layoffs of our large corporations, knowing that the rental market may not return, we need to be very fiscally responsible in our planning going future for the unexpected to happen.
Great point. Thanks.
That's a
Carol?
great observation.
My only observation is, I've heard, and in this write-up, there was about 7 times where I saw red tape bureaucracy. And one of the things, we need to develop a reward system or a celebration system where, because the answer is within the people, within the staff. And we just need to make sure that their ideas have a way to matriculate up, and so that we can adopt them. So we need to develop some type of celebration system or reward system where good ideas are brought to our attention so that we can implement them to streamline workflow and enhance residents' engagement.
That's a great idea, Carol. So this is a perfect segue, because one of the comments I read was, I think it was from staff, this is something I'd like clarification on, is sometimes it's okay to get a no, which we've been pushing for the last at least 4 or 5 years. Let's get to a yes. And we know there are constraints. We're in government, and there are parameters that we have to play within. But I just wanted to ask staff, totally safe environment here, about just what, if someone would like to expound on that a little bit. What does that mean? Are we pushing too hard sometimes? For example, if a constituent emails me and says, I've got this particular situation in my backyard. I think everyone else on council, if we know that person and we think they've got, you're kind of smirking, but this is not related to an email that I saw recently in your department. This comes up all the time. But we know that person, seems like a reasonable request. We also understand that there are law, ordinance constraints. We are going to generally want to push that request to the department head with a CC to the city manager and say, please inquire. And that's usually how brief I am, right? Yeah. And usually that means just look into it. But my expectation, I don't know about the rest of the council, is that no one's making an exception, but that we're going above and beyond for that constituent from a customer service standpoint. That we're not just saying no, because having done business in many cities throughout my career, the common city response is no. This doesn't fit within this box, no, without any assistance about how to get there. I mean, that happens in planning all the time, not here, but I've experienced it in other cities. So I just wanted to ask the staff for clarification. Is it something that we should be doing differently or considering differently when we deal with either constituents, requests, complaints, concerns, whatever?
Well, and to tag on to that, do we have a forum where we track these type of questions? And if we consistently hear the same theme, are we keeping a log to say maybe our policies or our laws need to be amended? And do we have we applied common sense? Because a lot of our laws, as we just went through the business fees, are very old, and they were from the 70s. Yet we consistently align to them because that's what's on the books. But we should be constantly having almost like a parking lot of ideas that we should be brainstorming about. These are things we're constantly hearing in planning, parks and recs. These are the themes. How do we change to adopt so those things we can change our practices, laws, or fees to accommodate?
I love that idea. Like, to me, it's if anytime you experience, well, first, I do want to get clarification. So what is staff, what was just the basis or some more understanding about that comment? Did I get it correctly? I think I did, right?
I think you did. The message I heard just to the staff and the manager was, we understand bureaucracy, we understand red tape, we understand the word no. Our message back is there a way to be nimble enough that the answer would say, how do we get to yes in a way not only within the confines, but the creativity to be able to solve the problem? You may have a reason to say no, but can you find a reason to say yes in a way that works? I'll give you a perfect example. I'm working in a desert community. I thought I had to climb the Himalayas just to get the business license. And you hired me, and we've got like 40 steps here. It's a business license. And I go, I can't imagine that you're throwing and this is a resort community, so I guess they can. But the message, how do we get to yes, is what I'm hearing from the mayor and council. So we've got to work not only within the boundaries, but the nimbleness, but the creativity to recognize the customer is asking for a way. Is there a way?
Yeah, so is there anything that staff would like to add in this, or we can move on, but just a little bit further explanation?
Would a reward system help?
Well, I like your idea. One of the things, Carol, when you said that is your parking lot idea, if department heads or staff were incentivized to say, hey, Lance came in, he wanted this, and we gave him a no, whatever that was, and we had a journal of it, that, to your point, could be a great repository of, okay, look, we have an issue in planning, we should address this setback thing.
Correct.
This is a real issue that we ought to consider next time we go to look at our general plan or whatever, some zoning stuff. Same thing with police. If amplified noise in a particular environment continues to be a complaint, someone complains and they have the ability to complain and shut down amplified music, just using a recent example, although you guys didn't shut that down, is that an issue? And if we had a way to just chronicle, to your point, Carol, of here are the times we had to say no. And I'm not expecting you all to say yes all the time, but I think Henry summed it up perfectly. It's how do you find them get to a yes? What can we do? And I will say this, I think we're doing a heck of a lot better job in the last couple of years. I really do. And anytime I send something to staff, they're on top of it. They respond immediately to the constituent. And I can't tell you how many other residents in other cities, I emailed the mayor, I emailed the city manager, I haven't heard a word. It's been weeks. That is the default expectation. So the fact that we're actually responding to our constituents on a regular basis and in a quick order, I think is huge. So I don't know if there's anything to add from staff, or Gerald, if you have an opinion about it. Are we pushing too hard on the get to yes thing?
That wasn't my comment in the question, the survey, but in terms of the formally creating some sort of journal or intake process, maybe we can work with that. I mean, unless each department's doing it individually, I don't think we do that. Like when I'll get an email from you or from another council member and pass it on, or you'll get. But that being said, I do know as part of our E-team, our weekly E-team meetings, when issues like this come up, we'll generally discuss them, the heated issues. Hey, like, I know Ally and I talk about use of the parks all the time, all those emails we get from Scott Nichol, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, stuff like that, or, I mean, there's common themes that we always get, you know, whether it's an email from, you know, from a Corey, for instance, on Hyperion. We'll discuss that as part of our E-team works, but there's no formal way of
Tracking it,
logging it or
tracking it.
tracking it. But maybe we should do that. At least we will know, because we do get a bunch of them.
You get a bunch, and I have a suggestion.
Okay.
Because I've done it depending on the temperament of the council. So every council has a different temperament or different DNA. So one of the more recent ones I had was all the council requests came into the manager's office, and then it got dispersed out to the departments.
Love that.
And then it came back in, and then all 5 council members saw what the activity was. So there was never, you know, what's Lance doing? You know, what's Carol doing? You know, it's not one. It sounds that, but it's not that way. It's like they come in, they get dispersed out, they come in, what's the status, and then that status goes out. And once you figure out the matrix on an IT grid, then everybody knows what's the volume, what's the result, was it a no, was it a yes, and then more importantly at the end of the year, you might discover, and I've had this happen, where the council, because I had 7 of them at one time, they were so active, they generated over 20,000 requests.
Yes.
And I said to them, I go, you see that binder? I'm throwing it away. I think you got too many. Oh, I've got a lot. And I go, of course you do. It's your own ward. But we're not going to do that binder.
Yeah.
It's going. And then, you know, the staff is smart enough to know there's a difference between something that's immediate, intermediate, a part of the strategic plan, or an incredible deviation where they say, that's not in the 5, that's not in the 61. I get it. It's curb gutter or sidewalk or a palm tree or a trash can. That's a task. Then it's done. But if someone says, hey, I want to redo El Segundo Bridge, well, that didn't come up here today.
So I want to make sure, like
It's an idea.
I was thinking more, it's not just our
Yeah.
feedback, it's for our constituents.
Yeah.
And we have the Fix It button on our website. So there should be, we could build upon that. So as things come in, we could maybe mechanically add a component to that where the staff, when things come in that they have to say no to, they can put it in there.
Yeah.
So that becomes a repository or like some type of, because I know we have had that Fix It button up for a while, and we have not heard, we haven't had feedback about how it's working or, you know, what's the turnaround time. Like, it's definitely something we put up there, and I know people use it, and I know you guys are acting upon it, but it would be great if we could celebrate that to say, hey, we had, you know, 100 Fix It requests in the first quarter, and 95 of them were done within the first week of submission. And that's a kind of proactive communication you go out to the community, because when you do that, it encourages people to use it.
Right.
So it doesn't seem like such a black hole.
Right. Yep.
And then if we could take that and marry it with any suggestions you'd like to engage with us, that they could use that as a tool, and that we could share that repository. And I'm not sure where that sits.
Carol, maybe we ask Henry to put that on a parking lot for today. That's something that we could.
Yeah, actually, it's goal 3. You just created a new item. How do we create a new process to effectively get to yes? I don't know what it means yet because it just came up. But the manager's office and the department heads can come up with some kind of way to make your suggestions, yours and everyone else, a reality, as opposed to, I wonder where that went. I wonder how many else things are happening.
Well, the other issue that we usually get emails, all 5 of us get copied, and we probably all send the same email to staff. So you're getting that times 5, and then you got to respond.
Right.
It's just the system's not
right.
great.
And it's finding the balance, but you won't find it today till you chat more with the manager's office about what does the actual process look like.
I think Chris has a thought.
Oh, not really. I just was, in terms of red tape, like if the staff, if this is internal to them, I feel like they have to fill out 7 forms to buy a stapler. Like, those are things
That's
that,
a problem.
in theory, right, they can escalate. If we have to,
Yeah,
that's something that lives somehow in our municipal code. I know we have a codicil in here about changing the municipal code, but there's all kinds of weird things that are in there. So if they got to fill out 7 forms to get a stapler, and I use that as an example, then that could be the red tape they're alluding to.
Yeah, right. It's a great suggestion.
Put on my planning commissioner hat and say that when it comes to land use, zoning, no is an appropriate answer in some situations, right? We have CUPs, we have ways that people can have a hearing, ask for an exception if their circumstances so entitle them to that. But the reason we have this small little community we love is because it's zoned that way. You're not allowed to build certain things. You can't be so close to your neighbors. And I think that that is a part of what we do as a city, is try to keep what we like and maintain the status quo so that other people can enjoy the city that we've grown up in. So I don't want to say that you can't say no. If no's the right answer, no's the right answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Ryan, I would say, little caveat, no with the record of why. Because if you think about the latest review we did of the setbacks, when was that, a year and a half ago? Maybe that would have come 2-3 years earlier if we'd actually been recording some of the complaints and concerns people had expressed.
If
That's
we had
my
been
only
logging.
point, is if we had a better system for knowing, planning is a perfect example just because of the flow. And you know, from your, as chair of planning committee, you have so many projects coming through, and it's such a high customer service touch point department. So I think Carol's onto something with maybe that I don't think we should continue to belabor, but this idea of, I agree with Ryan that no is appropriate, and then maybe why, so that, yeah, that's the right answer, but maybe there's an opportunity here in the future for this one particular item.
Yeah.
Just to finish the thought and build off of that, and I think Councilman, helps explain we're a regulatory agency, and so sometimes it's appropriate, but the way that I've approached it with my staff, which I think has helped in the last 18 months, is not just the why, but if that's what you want to do, here's a different avenue, or here's what you can do within the parameters. And the recent text amendment, which is 20, 30, 40 pages long, is a result of staff keeping an uninformal inventory of these things. It's not public until we get to a point where we have something robust enough, but I think that's something that can certainly be more public or just better, well communicated to council on a moving forward basis.
Or maybe even shared with other departments. You can use a similar. Yeah, that's great.
Okay. Mayor, with your permission?
Yeah, please.
So I think that's a great suggestion. That's going to be a newly created topic here as we get through this. So are you ready to get to work?
And the good part about that is, it doesn't, the goal here is not to create more work.
Right.
But an item like this it makes our job easier, I think, ultimately, if we do this properly.
Right.
It's a great suggestion, because we do spend a lot of time chasing after, hey, what happened today? And I try and do that.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons why we converted one of the positions to a special projects coordinator to keep track of things like this. And maybe.
And the end, the tie it all up with a nice bow is you push out proactively communication to share the community all the enhancement we have done as a result of the fix it.
That's absolutely right.
Because then they can say, wow, it's worth my while to do that, and this is the avenue, the venue where I'm going to go to actually communicate to the city.
Okay. All right, we're at the point now where we're going to be doing some rapid conversation. So I call your attention to the 5 specific goals you've created and the 51 strategies that you created. Keep in mind my earlier comments. What's in red were your top 10 strategies. So we're going to, with your permission, Mayor, we're going to start with Goal 1, A through E, and there are 5 items there. And so we're going to talk about what the mayor and council feel is completed or continued, but we're going to start with a quick 30 seconds from each department head. Are we completed or continued from your perspective and buy-in from the council? So the city manager's office is enhanced or our proactive community engagement program to educate and inform the public about city services programs and issues. City manager's office, is that completed or is it really a continuing item? And then council comment. 30 seconds, remember, department heads.
Well, communications are never complete, so it's ongoing. We've established a communications program. We have a 10-point communications plan. We've updated it twice now, so we've done 4 years of communications. We've hired a communications manager, and we are improving the use of the intranet as a resource for employees, so we're working on internal and external communications. I'd say ongoing.
Okay. Mayor and council members.
Ongoing, absolutely. It's a consistent thing that I think not just this organization, but any organization can improve upon. And a lot of the emails we get are questions where that information is known to folks in this room, but the folks outside of these meetings, you know, like yourself, don't pay attention because they don't want to and they shouldn't have to. They're going to have questions, and so we need to be more proactive about pushing out information about what we're doing.
I have a comment. So, you know, COVID forced us to be more focused on technology and use technology in communication and in everything we do. And as AI becomes more prominent in our world, that technology is going to rapidly expand. And I heard a stat today that kind of made me pause because they said, you know, what was it? The average age of the current Congress is 58 years old. So, you know, they're making decisions about AI, yet they're an older generation. And a lot of times when we hire people, they're of a younger generation, and so they forget that we have a lot of seniors in our community. And as we change and make progress about how we communicate or do outreach, we have to understand who our audience is. And we can't just look at from our prism of I'm a 25-year-old and this is how we communicate today. We have to remember how an 80-year-old or a 90-year-old receives information. And I just want to make sure that we're constantly challenging ourselves to really think about how that communication, of all communication, that we're not just focusing on one. And the other thing is, and I think we've gotten a lot better, and I know I've been pushing proactive, but the other thing that I want to push out there is push out rather than expect people to go to. Like, putting information on our website is great, but no one goes to websites anymore. So we have to constantly make sure whatever information we're generating, that we're doing a proactive push out and in many mediums to ensure that all residents receive the information adequately.
Okay. So, Mayor and Council, is that a continue?
Yes.
I think I'm hearing it. Okay.
Sorry,
City Manager.
I went long-winded.
No. City Manager's Office, item B.
So council directed our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee to research 4 key areas and report back to City Council with recommendations in each of those 4 areas. They have completed all 4 areas. The recommendations are ongoing, and they're coming to City Council with a work plan, first meeting of August, for what they want to do going forward. So it's continuing. We will continue to have a DEI committee, but they've also completed the 4 research topics that council asked them to complete.
Okay. Mayor and Council, are you comfortable? You've got a plan coming to you in August.
Continuing.
Continue.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
We haven't done anything.
Yeah.
Has to be.
Yeah, and on that whole, the DEI component, it's not just let's look at static and say, okay, tick a box, we completed it. It's an infusion in a mindset.
Yes.
And I think the challenge is that we constantly are pushing ourselves to ensure that that is become a mindset, not just, oh, is this policy something? We constantly have to challenge ourselves, you know, do a litmus test to say, hey, does this actually adhere to our goal of being as inclusive as possible?
Okay. Continuing, item C, community development.
I'd suggest this is ongoing. The department has implemented a 100% online permit system and automation, but it's ever changing, it's ever evolving, and so these things require constant updating and improvement, and so I just suggest that it's ongoing or carrying forward.
Okay.
And I agree with that ongoing, but can we ask, you know, I know with the new system, can we do a video or a communication out to the public to say, here's new at El Segundo, here's the new way to reach us from a permitting standpoint, because things have completely changed, but we haven't done any outreach, proactive outreach to let them know what we've changed.
I think Lance said it, yes.
I was going to say, C is correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, I don't think that's ever going to be considered completed. So I guess when we start going, meaning that it's always ongoing, so
I agree.
How does it ever change from what we have up there?
Yeah, can we delineate that? Yeah, if it just requires updating and operations and maintenance.
We're doing the same
If it doesn't
thing every
require a new capital expenditure, I would just put it as new, or I mean, I'd put it as complete.
Yeah, I feel
And
the
then,
same way.
and then we go to the O&M piece, unless we want to need to allocate money to put in a new system. I mean, otherwise, every time we do a software update, we'd have to list it as a.
Well, it also literally means that we're never going to cross anything off these lists.
It could be that way.
No, it is that way.
Yeah.
Hold on, Michael wants to
I'm not
defend
gonna mark
himself.
it as complete.
Good job, Michael, it's complete. We have
But
consensus.
it is an
yeah.
ongoing process. But
Right.
otherwise, the implementation of a new system is complete.
There we
Yeah,
go.
I think that's the key. The implementation of a new system is done. So that technically, unless the mayor and that what you asked for is complete.
Declare victory and leave.
So that's back to here. So Michael D.
The physical remodel is done as well. And that's thanks to Public Works.
D is complete. D is complete. Well, I'm going to say D is complete from the mayor and council standpoint.
Good.
Okay.
Henry, is now the time to talk about changing the wording a little bit, or?
The wording?
Yes, because I don't think for DEI, it's implement the council-approved recommendations anymore. It's implement the council-approved DEI work plan.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah. I think that's correct times now.
Because each year it's going to be a different work plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, if that's true, then you would have finished this one, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Which we did.
And we did.
Which the mayor and council would agree on?
Yeah, I think so.
If you adopted in August, this particular DUI plan is complete for this cycle.
Correct.
But we just got a,
We just
a
got
report,
recommended.
we just got a report with that and haven't deliberated on any recommendations.
so the- right,
it has
so-
to be.
All the recommendations have not been complete. So in a sense, that still
I know that.
stands, recommendations
I agree.
from the DEI
Makes sense.
committee.
Complete with a star.
So we revised it to change the word to work plan. If the council sees it that way, then that would be done. The mayor pro tem's correct. You actually haven't approved it yet.
Okay,
Yeah.
fine.
I
Let's move on.
I have problems saying that we are complete in our goal of increasing
Okay.
diversity,
Yeah, it's
inclusion, and
ongoing.
equity.
Okay. So we're leaving it where it's
Should
at.
always be an ongoing concern of
Should be a
this body.
mindset.
Yes,
Okay.
agree.
Okay.
I think what she was trying to say is just that the where the wording's going to be from now on is the idea is that we're going to have a new work plan each year that's supposed to accomplish over a 12-month cycle. So it'll always be up there.
That makes sense. I
Yeah.
don't want to make the
Yeah.
statement that we've
Yeah.
solved diversity.
No, no, for sure, no.
I think we have it. I think we've captured it. But that's a good dialogue there,
That's
Good point.
leaving this-
because you could see it differently and get
No,
lost.
no, no.
Great job.
So, Mike, you're good here? We're done with this? Okay. E, adopt and implement the livable action plan.
Yes, so this is, I'll speak from RPL's perspective. This is something we need to pick up again and carry over and really take a look at. I need to really look at my staffing resources to see where this best makes sense, who can take the lead on this project, and kind of in a wider vision of handling senior services and programs for the senior community.
And I will say,
Carryover.
during the pandemic, the regional momentum behind these programs skewed heavily toward the Silver Plan, which was addressing homelessness for senior citizens.
Right.
And not so much any of these age-in-place and age-friendly designations. So there's not a lot of regional momentum behind it. And virtually all of the county staff that were working to this have been working on homelessness issues.
Yes.
So this will be continuing, but there's just not a lot. It's being
It's not a
crowded
lot
out
of
by
resources.
homelessness.
Right.
Ally, I know it's an extensive process. Have we implemented any components of the age-friendly certification?
I don't believe we've started implementation.
Okay.
I know
Not,
we've got the application is about
our last stage gate was like 18 months ago that we had. It was-
Long
it
before I was
preceded you.
But that was just an initial assessment, right?
That was the initial assessment, and we had a work plan on utilization of ADUs. But I think
Very
that's the
minimal.
last, very minimal.
So we need to take a look at this and see with staffing resources what we can accomplish.
Because there's like
So it's a continuum.
parks
Yes.
So
components.
it's a continuum.
Pretty extensive,
Continuing.
yeah. Right, okay.
So, Mayor and Council, what we've done is A and B are continuing, C and D are complete, and we're continuing E. So we've completed what's completed and continuing. Are there any new strategies under Goal 1, Enhance Community Service, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion in Communication, you want to see? Carol?
I think, we should talk about, because this is all of the the outreach to our residents. You know, how do we do a fairly good job of letting our residents and businesses know about our fire and police services and what we do, but how do we enhance that component? And I'm not sure if it should fit here or because it's all about communication, right? Like, how do we do a better job letting people know that we have an amazing city, especially with the hear on the news, crime is is going up. How do we do a better job of making sure that they feel safe within our community?
Executive team, how do we phrase that into a goal? A strategy, I'm sorry. Or is it under A?
I got hey Barbara, on our Net Promoter Survey, Net Promoter Score survey, we don't ask the residents or businesses' opinion about how they feel with regards to safety, do we? Because to me, this is a
Yes.
total. We do ask.
Well, one of the categories is, so there's the net promoter question, and then there's what can we do to improve, or what have we done to earn your loyalty, and then there's these attribute rankings, and one of the attributes is the responsiveness of police.
I'm thinking more. This is such a tough one to measure. We talk a lot about it, Chief. How do you measure it versus the region, versus peer cities, all the different reporting stats of the FBI, et cetera. To me, this is, though, how does the public feel? This is a feeling thing. It's, do I feel safe or not? And Chris, if I'm talking to my neighbors and I got catalytic converters going left and right, I probably feel less safe than I did when that wasn't the case a year ago. So I don't know. I think maybe on our survey, we're already sending this out anyway. We have a question, which is, how safe do you feel? You know, relative to the past, or I don't know, something.
I think the issue with that, Mayor, and I think it's a great question. My concern is that people right now on a county level, they don't feel safe. And so they may not necessarily blame the El Segundo Police Department for not feeling safe. It's a general feeling, hey, I don't feel safe in the county.
But that's our reality.
Yeah.
We're within the county, and we can do things to mitigate people's concerns.
Right.
But that is what it is. I mean, you already have, what's that group, Lucid? Lucid, that's already surveying without I don't think we engaged them, did we? They're engaging our constituents about public safety.
Yes.
I think they did that on their own accord. Why wouldn't, I think we should know the same thing, which is how do our residents and businesses feel? I mean, business community, it's much different than it was a few years ago for retail and even commercial office. So as we talked a lot about metrics, how do we define a few metrics for each goal that really makes sense, that give us the information that we need, that we take seriously, that we revisit on a regular basis? To me, I don't know how you guys feel, Ryan, Chris, Lance, Carol, but I think all that really matters is how do the residents and the businesses feel about public safety?
So, Mayor, the question is availability and responsiveness of police department services. That's what we're grading on, and it's a 1 to 5 scale, and 4 to 4.2 is satisfied, 4.2 and above is very satisfied.
See, I think that question is still relevant and salient. I think you could add another one too, that to the chief's point. We might do an incredible job of responding. We know we do, but there's other factors at play that we have less control over, like the policy of the district attorney, statewide stuff, et cetera. So I seriously think we should consider both.
Yeah. Accessibility, I think, is a good one. You know, how do they feel their services are accessible? I don't know,
How would you guys answer, Carol? Like if I asked council members right now, 1 to 5, 5 is I leave my door open all the time, don't have to worry about my garage is open with my e-bikes.
We don't say that.
And 1 is I'm really concerned about crime. How would you answer? And do you think that that's a relevant metric? If you're looking law of averages, you're looking at a larger group.
I guess my call out on this is that, okay, once you get that number, what do you do with it?
Right.
So what's actionable on that metric? Is it increase in the amount of officers we have? What is it?
Yeah.
So as long as we're willing to get that number and then do something about it, then let's ask the question. But we have to be willing to do something if we're actually going to take the time to put it up there. That'd be my only input.
I think that's fair because it could be anything.
It's also important that we clear up reality from theory, right? Because, all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, there's so many, crimes, blah, 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 blah. And you find out it's one. What's the perception versus reality? So how do we as a city ensure that we are communicating the true reality and be honest about the true reality and what it means or what it is? But let's try to dispel some of these rumor mills that go around, on social media. How do we, because I know that whenever the police department posts on social media, hey, we caught this cop, or caught this that thief who is doing da-da-da-da. There's so many comments. Great job, great job. It infuses a sense of security. And I just think, because this is communication, I want to make sure that we are ensuring that our residents have a clear sense of reality.
Yeah. This is how I worded it. No, incorrect. This is how Rhonda worded it. Engage the community to ascertain the level of feeling safe in the community. Knowing that what Lance said is, well, once you get it, then there's got to be, what is it first? And then it has to be actionable, or it's kind of like you're going to irritate people if you don't have an action to it.
Look, you can delineate those questions, right? With how safe do you feel in the city? How safe do you feel in the region?
Correct.
Right? Because, nobody cares where on the beach the dividing line is between LA, the city of LA and us. They just care that some guy's shooting up.
That's right.
So it still affects our people.
That's right. So would you?
I don't know if it require, to me, does this require a whole nother goal, or is this just
or can you
No,
keep
it's part of
parking
one.
lot task to
It's part-
add it to MPS later?
It's part of one.
It's part of one.
It's part of one.
Okay.
I think it
So this is part of one.
Part of
This is not a
Just
new
look at-
goal.
look at the next
It's
page.
part of one. Okay.
It actually
Oh,
might
safety.
be solved within
Oh, yeah.
goal 2.
Yeah.
Public safety one.
Yes, yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
No, I got you. I just noticed it myself.
But as
Skipped
council
ahead
on
of a
board,
book.
that's something that we want to ask our residents and businesses.
I'm
how they feel
hesitant about a survey about people's feelings in general.
Well, we'll have to
It's
reword
gonna
that.
depend on how you phrase that, because that can be interpreted a million different ways, and then you don't know what you're measuring.
You're right. And I'll make the counter argument. My son lives on the border of Lincoln Park and Old Town in Chicago. How do you think he feels about where he lives?
Well, I don't need to survey him to tell you that.
Yeah.
Right.
But can the city do things about that?
Yeah.
I guess it's like, do you want to know the answer and be transparent and understand how our residents and businesses truly feel, or we choose to ignore it?
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying we ignore it. I'm saying you need to be cognizant of the question you're asking, because they may be answering a question you haven't asked.
Right.
And if you look at those surveys that Lucid or whatever is doing, they're basically the same vein. How do you feel? How are you feeling about safety where you live? And so, to me, safety is a feeling. It's like, when I walk out the door, how am I feeling? Do I feel like I'm going to get carjacked or not? Do I feel like I need to put a catalytic converter, contraption around my vehicle? Can I leave my bike out for 3 minutes? Those are all feeling decisions based on what you experience on a regular basis, what you hear, what you see. And I don't know, I just think, I feel strongly we should be asking about how people feel. And it could be Tracy says, yeah, I still leave everything unlocked. Don't give out your address.
I rode Tracy's bike here.
Yeah.
I think the question is, it's part of one, and
Same.
Barbara will have to
Define it
come back and develop the question.
Be careful how you
Define it carefully.
Yeah, it's part of one.
Well, I think
Let's come
Lance
back.
is part of it too. It's public safety
Yeah,
and
what we're
perception.
coming up on the next thing is enhance, goal 2 is support community safety and preparedness. I think we're gonna talk about this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Henry, I've got something to add
Not
to
yet.
goal 1, and it may be elsewhere in the plan, I don't recall, but in reading A, enhance our proactive community engagement program. I mean, one of the big things that we've been working on as an E-team, city manager's office, the HR department, is proactively engaging our staff. I mean, I've spent a good part of my first year here engaging staff from, we did a survey of staff about a year ago that so they were completely out of touch with City Hall. We've spent a lot of time, we will continue to spend time. So I'd like to either add something to A, but not just proactively enhance community engagement, proactively enhance engagement internally.
I think that's goal 3, because we talk about quality workforce and used to be employer of choice is what we used to call it. We reworded that one. Wouldn't that fit there? That's all about
Yeah,
the
and
workforce.
but somewhere in here, I'd like to make mention, because that's the key priority.
So are you on goal 1 still, though?
Yes, but I
Okay.
just did that because I was just piggybacking on A.
Okay.
But if you look at 3, it's in here. Institute methods of understanding employees' interests and needs regarding training, job satisfaction, and engagement.
Oh, engagement. There we,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Goal 3.
Yep.
Yeah, we didn't go that deep because we're looking at the top goals, but yeah, because there's so many of them.
Good.
So let me bring us back. It appears as there's a lot of mud and fog in this topic right now. But what I heard was, when we look at what's moving forward, if you look over there, we've got the first 2 items moving forward. C and D carrying over. C and D are closeouts, and what Ally said is we're carrying over. We haven't created a new goal, but we've had a modification to the existing survey that Barbara's working on. And the message back to Barbara is there was a conversation about feelings, not so much feelings, and the sensitivity about how to incorporate language to draw upon how the community feels about how safe they are. That's a loaded cheese pizza. But you'll have to come up with that dialogue with the manager's office to make sure the council members and the mayor are comfortable with that before
I think
it goes.
the only I totally agree with you is that Lance has a good point that goal 2 is all about public safety.
Right.
So we started talking about it, but it really fits probably under.
Yeah, it probably fits there.
Yeah.
So you can kind of see, here's how I see it respectfully, Mayor and Council. The staff, you were perfect. The council member, not so much within the 2 minutes. I say that respectfully. Now I'll move on to goal 2. Another priority, address quality of life issues pertaining to homelessness, graffiti, noise, crime, air quality, and other concerns. That's the PD and Public Works.
So I'll talk briefly about that one. My recommendation, obviously, that's an ongoing goal for us. Homelessness, that's not going away, and that takes up a lot of our resources, a lot of our staff time, and we continue to do whatever we can to help people out in our community with that. Graffiti, I work with Elias's staff quite a bit. Our people work with his staff to make sure that as soon as it's found in our city, we address it and get rid of it, because graffiti tends to bring more graffiti. And noise, I work with Director Allen's staff on that, on our neighborhood preservation. Crime obviously is an ongoing issue, so my recommendation is that be labeled a continue.
Okay. Mayor and Council.
So I just have a question. So like, give an example of the graffiti. We now have a mechanism to quickly take care of graffiti, like a process that's established. So there's always going to be graffiti, but the fact is that we have the process. Does that mean that goal is complete? Because, you know, as to Lance's point, we need to get to a point where we're putting on goals that are actionable. So can we, as we do this, as we talk about like homelessness, we have a process in place. So yes, we know that homelessness is an ongoing problem, but we have mechanism and a process in place to manage that. So my suggestion is we mark it as complete, but know that, but to once again tie it up with the bow, we got to communicate out to the public what that process is, and that you know, as we go and communicate to the public to say, you know, we just did the strategic planning process, we've marked these as complete, here's why, and then we establish what those processes are, and then we have a mechanism in place.
Yeah, let me help here. That is, you can see where the tanglement can be between the dilemma between what's complete and what's ongoing. So most social issues are always ongoing, but you approve particular tasks to address them at any given time that in theory could be completed, whether it's on the homelessness, whether it's shelter or food or indirect services. That would be an example. But, you know, and that's the conversation you're having. So are you addressing it in such a satisfactory way, depending on your programs, that you feel it's complete or ongoing?
It's ongoing.
It's ongoing. Any differentiation there with the mayor and council? Okay, it's ongoing. B is fire.
So real quickly, just looking at B, the first line, conduct an analysis to include a response coverage study. That's really part of G down below. For me, it would be, the strategy would be determine the best and most cost-efficient response models for the fire department and move the first portion of that down to G because that's where it belongs.
Concur.
Okay. So your recommendation is
to take the first line out of it and start with determine the best and most cost-efficient response model. And then that first portion goes down under G, where it says complete and implement the fire department's accreditation process. The analysis for the response is a subset of G.
Yeah, arrow it down. Okay.
And that way, under that, then options can be provided.
Okay. Mayor and council.
Agree.
Agreed.
Okay. So is that carry over?
Yeah, it's definitely
Carry over.
carryover.
It's
I don't know
definitely
if
carry over.
it can be done before I finish my term.
Okay. Okay.
Come on.
Better get on it, Robert. I've been here for like 3 days.
I know the answer.
Well
Get to
played.
yes. Get to
Well
yes.
played, Mr.
Get to yes.
C, Public Works.
Yes, sir.
Is this completed?
I have completed. Is it?
C.
C is completed.
Well, that was as brief as I've ever heard.
Wait.
I'm
I don't know
not
if we
sure.
can say that, though. Environmental
That's going to be
violation?
going on for a couple of years.
Where he's at.
I think this is going to be ongoing for the rest of our lives.
It's ongoing, but as issues are risen, we have a system in place that will respond. So from that, looking at from that angle, we have a system in place that responds to all the issues that are risen. But it's going to be continuous because issues going to continue to come up.
Having said that, how much time of your time is devoted to environmental issues? And do you think your time would be best served if we did have someone within your department solely addressing Hyperion, Chevron, LAX, all the other industrial neighbors surrounding our city?
That's a great question. Since the incident of 7/11 a couple of years ago, on average, I've spent anywhere from 15 to 20% of my time having to deal with the Hyperion and any follow-up issues that came out of that with AQMD and with dealing with the politicians and how to address the issue. So that has taken lots of my time. And answer to your second question, I think that would definitely help me if we have a person that is perhaps would be part of the staff that could spearhead those issues, and that would give me a lot of break.
Can any of those duties be absorbed by one of our two Koopas?
I'm sorry, but
We have two Koopas who do environmental regulation. They're funded by the fire department. Can they absorb any of those collateral duties?
not in my opinion, because a lot of that has to really be done by a person who understands those issues and the technicality of those issues and the requirements and the process. That's my response.
But do you have a sense of?
The question is, when we say environmental violations, I mean, that usually is Koopa. Is this meant to be Hyperion? Is that?
Yeah, that's my question. Is similar to Mark. We had an outlier event that hasn't happened, and we haven't had an incident like Hyperion ever, really. So, how much of from an ongoing environmental regulatory compliance standpoint, how much time does someone in your department need to deal with these types of issues? Forget about Hyperion. We've now hired a consultant that's doing a lot of the lion's share of the work, correct?
Yes.
And we've got a task force doing outreach, and we hired a new lobbying firm in Sacramento to deal with us on that front. So how much time is required for environmental regulatory compliance on an ongoing basis?
since we hired Dr. Stenstrom, that has helped a lot.
It's a different topic. This is Bob's department.
Yeah.
Environmental violation.
I would agree with that, from reading this and not knowing the background on Hyperion and the problems with Hyperion and the releases that come from Chevron and those kind of things, if you're talking about air quality and those kind of things, maybe it should better be defined as an air quality problem. But if you're talking about environmental, such as releases of materials on the ground or that affect the public in a health hazard, not a nuisance hazard, then I think that Coupa handles a lot of those issues already for the emergency.
But to Mayor Pro Tem's point, Chief, what about on the air quality? That wouldn't be a Coupa?
So Coupa would assist with that, with the mitigation, but I'm not quite sure what this is asking as a goal, or a strategy, what it's asking.
This muddles two pieces, right? This muddles sort of environment writ large and addressing Hyperion are all bundled into C. So C probably is best understood, for clarity's sake, as two different items.
I want to say something Ryan said yesterday. We were on a call with new council member Tracy Park and her staff, and he just said it really succinctly, which is when a resident, he was at the candidate forum at the school district, and there was a question about, is our air quality safe? And you could not answer the question. To me, it's as simple as that. We cannot answer that question, so do we need to dedicate some resources to being able to tell our residents and businesses on a regular basis how we're doing, knowing that we're pushing Hyperion for additional monitoring, et cetera, I think is,
Mayor?
yeah.
I also wanted to add that there are times when environmental issues, Hyperion in particular, take up 50 to 75% of communication time. Because we're preparing updates, we're updating our website, we're sending out messages on email, we're sending out social media. So it's a big draw for comms time as well. And it takes away from doing other things within communications.
So let me, if I may, Mayor, after you thought.
Lance, our thought, and then Chris.
So I don't know, I stepped out for 2 seconds. Hopefully I didn't miss too much, but I think jumping on what Ms. Zarnicki said during public comment, this and what Ryan's saying, this is another thing that's never going away. Like Chevron's not closing down, Hyperion's not closing down, the airport's not closing down. So are we gonna have a consultant and a lobbyist forever?
Right.
That's not gonna work out. So since these problems are really never going to go away, we probably have to consider how we can staff ourselves properly to address it on an ongoing basis.
So continuing,
but I think the deeper.
If I remember the discussion of this item, it's interesting, and I could this could be wishful thinking, but we were talking about holding a large-scale neighboring municipal operation accountable. I think back then we were talking about potentially getting some legislation passed to hold Hyperion accountable in the long term. And maybe I'm backing into this, but I do believe a part of this discussion was specifically about Hyperion, how we hold them accountable in the long term.
Yeah, I think partially it's been done, but the truth is that this will never ever disappear from our strategic plan ever.
True.
It's just a matter of how it's going to be worded.
Let me float out one idea, just so I want to see what the council thinks and the city managers. What if we went to DWP, LAX, Hyperion, Chevron, and whoever owns the former NRG site now, and we asked them to fund a air quality environmental person on our behalf. They split it between 5 entities. I think that's a reasonable request, considering they're the ones.
I can't imagine them. I wouldn't sign up.
Well, I mean, they give us a lot for economic development. Chevron gives us how much a year? $500,000 for economic development?
Yeah.
75,000 a year.
75. Oh, man.
It's gone down.
Historically, the issue has been getting anyone to concede they might be part of the problem.
Yeah,
right.
true.
The minute you point to one of them and say, "Hey, it's your plane that's making this come out," they say, "The 105's right there and the 405's right there. This has nothing to do with us." I mean, it's worth a try. You can always ask.
There's also that $100 million fine that's going to go to some bureaucracy in the state, and I think we really need to start pushing about getting that money back into the community that was negatively affected, and use those funds to help with this endeavor of getting someone on staff. I mean, there's a lot of ways. If we can get someone else to pay for it, Mayor, more power to you.
1.7 questions too.
Let's do
some of that money.
All right.
Okay, so we added explore staff position. May I make a suggestion, Mayor and Council? You can see we're trying to compress 6 hours into 3. So the uncomfortableness is not to rush you, but you can see the dialogue is really good. So I don't want to slow it down, but I want to be aware that we've got to keep trying to pump through it is my message. And only you can tell me, no, we're good with the dialogue, and I am too.
I don't feel like anyone's being repetitive. I feel like it's
all contributory.
Okay.
Yeah, and just to finish that thought, we are bringing on the project manager person in within the city manager's office. It's definitely something that person could maybe be part of that group to look at from an environmental standpoint to make sure that they're reaching out to all the teams.
Yeah. And we've added explore staffing needs.
Yeah.
Great.
D's ongoing. We're hiring for that position.
Yeah.
Okay. D's ongoing. E.
Shouldn't E just be part of what we have in?
I said that from the very beginning.
Just get rid of it?
E and A combine?
No, it's an A over there.
It's duplicate.
It's a duplicate.
Okay.
Over there.
Okay. So just cross this off.
Yeah.
I said that last year.
Yeah.
But God.
How about F, fire?
This one we had a metric specifically for, one of the metrics we had was number of CERT qualified people in town at residents and businesses was one of the metrics that we had to measure how prepared we were. I feel like this one slipped a bit with the departure of Dr. Collins. I don't know.
Concur.
Well, and we need to do that for earthquake preparedness too.
So is continuing?
Continuing.
Continuing.
I think there needs to be a new focus on it.
We'll put new focus down here.
And shift, because we were so focused on COVID, we now need to focus on earthquake.
Shift from new focus from COVID to
process.
I thought you dealt with that, yeah. I think that's
earthquake, e.g.
Didn't G already get discussed?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. G's a duplicate.
G's we've got covered. H will be PD.
Yeah, that'll be PD.
Real fast, before we leave G, do we know, because I've seen the binder, but does that mean I read the report, but does that mean it's done?
It's not been implemented.
For
accreditation?
Accreditation.
It is not. It's not complete.
I mean, we have a Gone with the Wind sized report.
Yes. I believe the third phase is the self-assessment. I don't think that's been done yet.
Very well.
It's
Continuing.
on the standard cover.
There we go.
Chief H.
Yeah. This one, I think if we apply the standard of whether we've implemented oversight and systems to make sure that we're providing services in the most cost-effective manner, I think we may be able to categorize this one as complete. This year, there were several initiatives at the state level that created some mandates for us. And we were able to mobilize personnel that we had at the PD to take on more duties. So I would recommend that this one be labeled as complete.
All right.
I'm good with that?
I'm good.
Concur.
Two things here completed in their way under the same column.
It's going to rearrange the seating now.
Everybody
Do
gets
we need to
Take
take
an icebreaker game.
Yeah, do we need to take a,
He said 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock, 20 more minutes.
I got lots of them.
Okay, let me ask, are we creating anything new under goal 2? And then I'll leave it to the mayor where you want to break now. That might be refreshing or
Ninja Squad.
Are we adding anything to 2? I don't think we
the only thing,
It's just that, right?
correct. Correct.
Oh, yeah.
That's going into 2.
That's going into 2.
We already talked about, and remember it was, we talked about it as goal 1, but that's going into goal 2.
Correct.
the only other thing is, we have our volunteer force. And I know that, I've been pushing to try to get that enhanced a little bit. And then we have the community neighborhood watch that I know some of the communities really, do we need to?
I was going to ask, Carol, what if we asked, Chief is coming to the council in last meeting of June with the state of the police department and future ideas. Maybe that's something Chief could incorporate as the
June 20th.
June 20th. Yeah, the consideration of, to your point, volunteer and what was the other one?
At the neighborhood watch.
Oh, neighborhood watch. Yeah.
Because I know the community has taken that on themselves to do it, but I don't know if that's something we should be involved in or not.
So to follow up on that, we're actually recruiting for a crime prevention officer, and we're in backgrounds. So she would actually spearhead that neighborhood watch program, neighborhood outreach, all of those programs. So if we have her hired by June 20th, I'll introduce her at council during that meeting.
I think we're on to 3.
We're on to goal 3.
Yeah.
And just for reference, in case you're wondering how this is happening, we're listing them up there, and you can clearly see, and we'll do the report, where things have moved and what you've continued and what you've added.
Right.
Okay, goal 3, promote quality of workforce through teamwork, organizational efficiencies. A is one of your priorities. So, Rebecca, you have the first 3.
So the first one, we have made significant progress. I mean, it's nearly every council meeting I come with some change to a department or to a position. But I feel that although we've made a lot of progress, there's still more work that needs to be done.
Okay. So, more work means you're suggesting it continue for the mayor and council?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
So one of the things that we had talked about, I know Drew and I had mentioned it before, was about, the private sector has adapted to an ever-changing workforce, where cities have been a little lagging in, keeping the longevity of their employees. It's longer than in the private sector. And one of the things I know we'd asked about is how do we ensure that there's a transfer of knowledge, or that knowledge is captured, so that there is a way for onboarding to go more seamless, and that we don't lose constitutional knowledge. Because we have to get to a point that we understand that revolving door is now within government, and we just have to accept that and manage to that.
To that point, Rebecca, do we have an LMS, any kind of learning management system in the organization?
We do have, it's called KnowBe4, and we do use that
For IT mostly, right?
Microaggressions, harassment training, cybersecurity training. There's other online trainings that are offered through the LMS program.
But nothing on city background, strategic plan, just how we function. I just think, to Carol's point, I know you're looking at different HRIMs and everything else, or HRSs, but an LMS I think would be useful.
So what we, hopefully when we finish hiring for the HR department, we will be implementing the NeoGov onboard module. And in the onboard module, it's set up by different bargaining units, and it can also, each bargaining unit or each department has the opportunity to have like a video on their department, different things happening. You could have a message from the mayor in there on.
But you can create your own content specific.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know, it's just like, in private sector, they anticipate people leaving within 2 years. So they have a set repository of information so that the onboarding process is a little more seamless. And I just want to make sure that we've actually instituted it.
Yeah, I think we should add that, unless you see it under A, then how do we develop or maintain institutional knowledge?
The good news is that when we moved to the Granicus and we created new pages or new in our website, that started the process, because historically there was information being stored in multiple places and we didn't know source of record. So that's now that baseline has been established, but how do we expand upon that?
Okay. So we're going to add to it underneath. Mayor and council, we're continuing? Okay. B?
It's the same.
Oh.
You've got the first 3, Rebecca.
The first 2 goals are continuing. We are at the table still with some of our bargaining units. So that's an implement of, changing the compensation packages to be competitive with surrounding agencies.
Okay.
We did also implement a trial Fullerton schedule for Management Confidential, which we will be transitioning to the supervisors group next. So that is something that helps us maintain a competitive edge. but we're constantly looking at, you know, classification and compensation issues.
Okay. Mayor? Mayor, is that a carryover or a complete?
I think she says it's all carryover, right?
From your perspective, Rebecca, is that a carryover then?
Carryover.
Okay. Does the mayor and council feel good about that carryover?
Yes. Yeah. Sure.
Okay. C?
So for that one, we have started a citywide training program essentially from when there was none, and we have put on, you know, more than a dozen trainings and some trainings just for our executive team. And as city manager George was talking about earlier, we've held open meetings with the city manager for employee feedback. We've done those for all city employees and then specifically for different groups. We also did the employee engagement study. And in terms of succession planning, we have revised several classifications to provide a career series ladder, like from a 1 to a 2 or a regular and a senior. But that's a continuous process as well. But those are some of the things that we've done.
That you've done.
Where
Okay.
maybe it didn't really, you know, ground roots.
Okay. Any thoughts, mayor and council?
I don't know. To me, this one reads, I agree, it just reads more like part of the HR's core function. Like it's never going to go away. How do you ever, I don't think you ever check the box on that.
So would you keep it or?
To me, this is just.
I think it's just redundancy. Right?
It's administrative more?
We've instituted multiple methods, so yeah, I think this can be completed.
Okay. Okay. We're scratching that. Not that it's not ongoing.
Right, and I think D is the same because we're handling it in goal 1.
Okay.
Right.
We'll scratch that out of, unless the mayor and council, we're scratching D out because we've addressed it in goal 1.
It's a mindset.
The only caveat is that the reason it's in this one is because it's related specifically to the workforce, whereas the other one was related to community.
No, I think that what we're doing is we're changing that first 1A as
broader.
it's full comprehensive for DEI.
Got it. Okay.
Okay. E and F are the manager's office. Oh, I'm sorry. E is the manager's office.
Yeah, this has not been completed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one of the things I keep talking about with KPIs, and I said this repetitively, is KPIs are there for you to improve process and make change and to check to see how you're performing. If we need to set a process, like a protocol that after a certain period of time, we say, hey, we watch these KPIs, we learn these lessons from these KPIs, and as a result, we change these processes. Done, next KPIs. Like, KPIs are not something that you just, the same KPI for ever and ever. It's like, it's supposed to be a learning tool. And I think we haven't ever got to that point.
I guess my challenge then is how are we getting the metrics? Like, what are the actual numbers? Because without a means to measure them, I don't know how to get there. And I know it's much easier in business and whether you're selling a product than it is in governments. Like, what are the KPIs we're talking about? Is it the net promoter stuff, or is it something else? Because net promoter, I think, I know we're going over tonight or tomorrow, so I don't want to, or tonight, so I don't want to ruin Barbara's thing. But I know we're getting the responses are down. People are not. So if we're basing everything off of what 500 responses.
976.
That's better than most of our stuff.
To me, Lance, because we have a comprehensive list. The problem was we weren't really doing anything with it. It would get buried in a. Like the first time we saw it, it would be part of the agenda. Then it was buried in consent, more or less. Not buried, but it was put there. And there were so many, it's just almost unwieldy. And to me, it's like, if you want to talk about being a great workforce, call it employer of choice. Well, how do you do that? You ask your employees. Employee engagement is a number that can tell you how you're doing in that regard. Right. Number of promotions, turnover rate, et cetera, which are some of the ones we had in there. When it comes to Mr. Allen's department, it's how quickly are we getting permits done? And to Carol's point, you know where the friction is in the process, then you implement a new system, you improve your processes, and that number goes down over time. Chief's department, simple. How much crime is there relative to what's happened in the past in a peer group? All those were stated in there, it's just we haven't revisited them in quite some time. And then Elias's department, the one that Chris talks about all the time, is just, it's output. How much are we getting done on the CIPs, the sidewalks, the gutter, whatever, curbs? So we have them, but we've just kind of, we haven't done anything with them historically. And then we don't have any good reference points. Well, what is a good number? What is the standard when someone comes to your counter that says, if you're building, by right to code, you should expect a permit by X. I'm just using you as the simplest example. But I don't know that we all know that and have alignment on what our key metrics are.
So
And
is
then
the
we
goal
should
to set the
reward.
data point? I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, no.
I'll say, is the goal then for this year to set the data point per department?
I think so.
I think they should have one or two.
I think that's a good answer.
Within the department.
Set one or
Shouldn't be
two.
From us, it should be from the department to present us. Here's two key KPIs. And I think we should establish a reward.
Set one or two
A reward
KPIs
system.
per department.
If they, Michael, just hypothetical, I'm going to pick on you. Like if you say our turnaround time is 72 hours, but if we get down to 48 hours on all plan checks, everyone gets a bonus.
I think we can
let's
deputize the city manager to if he wants, because he can assess, if we start ruling by stats ye shall have. And those don't necessarily tell you anything about how someone's performing. So I think we could, but I think you're dead on. I think we deputize the city manager to use those stats however he so chooses.
Okay.
And pick one or two by department, just to start.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's overwhelming.
One or two.
One or two.
That is ongoing then, right?
It'll be ongoing, but there's more definition. You'll notice for the mayor and council on the board, we're actually scribing in some of your additional tweaks. Okay, item F, HR.
I think that one is completed. We've established a wellness program. We've done a health fair. We offer flu shots. Kaiser actually awarded us for our wellness program that we had. So we have a great partnership with them. We've done mobile health screenings through Kaiser on site for employees.
And
We're currently in a wellness challenge right now.
And we've streamlined our health program for everybody.
Our benefits
She's saying we're done.
have been
We'll see what they say.
compiled into a beautiful benefits guide with the help of a new broker that we brought on in 2021. So.
Perfect.
Okay. Mayor and council agree with that?
Agree.
Agreed.
Okay. I've got item G.
This was already marked as a carry forward, right? Continuing?
It is a carry forward. Are you comfortable with that? No explanation. We're good.
We are launching the recruitment with, for the emergency management coordinator with a revised job description very soon,
Okay.
probably next week.
Okay. Let's progress. Mayor and council, with your permission, H and I with the clerk.
Yeah, so streamlined contract process, yes, that we worked with the city attorney's office and finance. That, but we do have ongoing training on it, and we are looking into a contract management system or program to further enhance.
So what's the answer? You've streamlined? It's complete. It's complete for now is what I think I'm hearing, but
Phase one is complete.
okay. How about I?
Records management is ongoing. Well,
You develop a work?
we have the work plan. That is correct. That is
Yeah.
finished.
Yeah.
Right
Yeah.
now,
Cross it off.
we're moving into the second phase,
Yeah.
which is streamlining Iron Mountain. So
Okay.
I would say it's complete because we have our,
You have the work
we
plan.
have the work plan.
Okay. HR, J.
We have added significant additional resources on both the intranet and the internet for additional transparency. So I think that that one is complete. I do think that we need to continue education in terms of what is available on the intranet to the employees so that they'll utilize the resources more.
Okay.
I think the internet's under comms.
This is the intranet.
Yeah, the internet.
Okay.
So,
Should move to comms, not HR.
well, it can stay here,
Intranet.
but the intranet is a communications initiative.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think we can say that's complete.
So let me call your attention, if I may. You've done a lot of work here, but you can see it's tedious, right? You're grinding through it quickly. But what your progress is on the wall here, don't underscore it, Mayor and Council. Please look at what the changes you've made, because you've made them. And then, of course, they'll come back in a formal document from me. My suggestion, Mayor, is a power 10 minutes.
But before we do that, we haven't done if there's any new ones.
Right, right,
Can
I'm
we
sorry.
add a couple items?
Yeah,
Because,
absolutely, my apology.
I would put out there that, considering there seems to be structure and morale pieces pointed to on all the commentary, that if there's things we need for the 2024 ballot that involve changes to the administrative and municipal code, it would behoove us to start on that now, because those take a lot of time, and we don't want to rush through a change before we go to the voters and say, here's why we're making a change to the municipal code.
Yeah, I think.
That's a great observation.
Yes.
I thought so.
And I have one more.
I got t-shirts.
Administrate, overhauling the.
I'm going to have to be careful of my choice of words.
If we want to change the admin code, this is part of the bizarreness of how we're constituted. If we want to change our admin and municipal code, it has to go to the voters.
Got it.
The other thing one of the things you hear a lot now is we need to expedite the onboarding process of getting people hired. So how do we look to enhance, and I know a lot of it's going to be to once they get fully staffed, but one of the things that I've always pushed on is, we tend to look within the pool of government workers. How do we push out to expand to more, to ensure that we have a broader scope of candidates? So how do we reach out to those people beyond just people that are currently in government work?
Okay. We have 2 items. Develop the changes to the municipal code for HR, if that needs to be for an electoral issue, for a ballot measure. So we'd have to add that, ballot measure. And then expedite the onboarding process and reach a broader scope of candidates. I apologize, I forgot that last piece here. Any new things? Anything else?
As staff, is there anything we're missing on this one? This is your goal.
I was looking back in the survey. They're talking about, I heard the word civic system a couple times. I think it was civic system.
Dealing with
civil
service.
Where?
environment.
Yeah. Okay. So
it would be
where
here.
would that fit? Okay. So okay.
Yeah.
Because that comment came up quite a few times.
So, with your permission, if there are no other items, Mayor and Council, a power 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
The teeth are coming up. It's goals 4 and 5, and then the dots, and then we're done, and it's go Lakers at 5 p.m.
Ooh, let's go.
You're going to closed session. I got the radio.
3:07 return time.
3:07.
Well, great work, everybody. We're on goal 4 and goal 5. Goal 4 has 16 specific items, and goal 5 has 12. So we're in the eye of the storm. So let's see how we move through this. With your permission, Mayor, let's start with goal 4, item A, identifying park solutions throughout the community. Public Works.
Parking.
Where are we at? Oh, 4?
Actually, I'll just say, I mean, this is
What did I say?
ongoing. I don't think it's part of the
Parking.
discussion. Ongoing.
Agreed.
Or carry on, or what, I can't remember.
Pass.
Carry on.
Yeah.
Carry on.
I don't know. She gave me the 3 C's. I know the 3 C's as complain, criticize, and condemn.
So, but here's the deal. I want to make sure that this isn't just identifying parking spots, but it also encompasses, do we need to police or enforce our posted signage? And do we want to look at offering meter parking? So it's really more, I think we just look at it like, do we need parking spots?
It's a broader conversation, you're saying.
Right, but I mean, because one of the things that we really need to really have a conversation about is enforcing posted parking rules. Because if we enforce posted parking rules, I think a lot of our parking issues would go away.
Right.
And then then the third thing would be looking at meter parking. So I want to make sure, I want to really this year have a hard conversation about that.
Okay.
We can talk about parking and lieu at the same time, I think.
Yeah, parking, well, there was that lawsuit we have to be careful of, that, what city was that? Glendale? That had to pay some money back because they didn't enforce, they didn't use the money correctly. I sent it to Daryl. Yeah.
So A would be now adding to include enforcing parking rules and meters?
Yes.
Okay. Any disagreement, Mayor and Council?
You're going to say in meters or discussion of possibly adding meters? Is that what you're talking about?
That.
Discussion of adding.
That one's going to
Okay.
send a little reverb.
I think he wants a little bit clearer discussion of meters. Okay. Item B.
This is definitely
Number one priority. Ali, do you want to?
It's ongoing.
Okay. So this combination of public works and Rec and Park and library, this is definitely carry forward.
Yep.
Yeah.
Work in progress.
Work in progress, correct.
So I know you showed me a list of existing CIPs in progress. Does the council have that list?
Yeah, and we just updated it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I would like to add a component to this is, goes back to my reward. If we establish timelines and we get them done sooner, I'd love to include some type of reward system to say, if we get these done faster than we anticipated, let's reward that. Or under budget, let's create a reward system to get this stuff done.
That should be a standalone.
Because right now, it behooves
Standalone
the staff to let them go a little longer than they should.
Okay.
She wants to.
We're gonna.
I don't think it behooves us.
No, but
I like
makes
the-
your life,
I
it
like
makes your
the
life a
reward
little
idea.
easier.
Maybe that should be I mean,
I like the reward.
council members brought this up on a number of it. Maybe that should be a standalone strategy, this whole reward system enhancement, if you will.
Okay. So how about, what are you looking at, Rhonda?
It's kind of like the 105 freeway, right? They got that done, how many? They got a lot of money.
Yeah.
Well, it's recognition, but this topic is incentives.
I have I have a recommendation. Why don't you just put establishing a rewards program based on completion of goals,
Success of a project.
on time, under budget or ahead or whatever we want to put it, something like that, and just make it one goal instead of putting it in 4 different places.
That's a great suggestion. So we're adding
Okay,
it
I'm done.
here on goal 3.
Good job.
I've never
Establishment.
Good
anything
idea,
better than that
Lance.
today. So that's all I got.
Item C, IT.
We're going to say that this is ongoing. Have not had a chance to work with the city manager's office to kind of understand what the full objective of the, expanding our fiber infrastructure is. I also want to talk to the economic development team to see if there's still really even a need. My understanding is this objective was put on the list specifically to address some gaps in high-speed access.
Yeah. But now we have a new company that's in town.
Exactly, and I reached out to Spectrum about 6 months ago, and my understanding is that they offer high-speed service there, so it's really a question of kind of revisiting and seeing if we, if there's still a need or not.
I haven't heard from businesses that it's a continuing issue.
So maybe we put a little star by it saying, once he hears back, we can take it off.
Say that again, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
No, because we don't know if this is still a need.
Okay.
Because there's a new company in town that's offering the service.
Okay.
So this may not be an issue anymore.
So we need to revisit C. Is that right? And revisit C,
continuous.
why? Because there's another company in
It
town?
may not be needed anymore.
It may not be needed. Okay.
It was met by a private.
Let's put that, revisit this C.
Yeah, which is like.
How does the mayor and council feel about that? It may need to be revisited.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
I think we beat them up, and now it is going in block by block every day. You can
Yeah.
call on request if you're on an east-west street, so I'm comfortable knocking it on.
Okay.
Knocking off.
Item D, initiated comprehensive update of the general plan. Mike?
This is a multi-year effort. It's underway. It's going to be ongoing. We've tackled the housing element. We've got 2 strategic plans that we're in the midst of wrapping up this summer. And then we need to tackle land use element, public safety element, park. So It's just an ongoing effort.
So do you have a sense for the mayor and council when you see the different elements coming before, where if they said, what does that mean? Would it be done in 2025?
I don't have it mapped out
Okay.
per se, but it's certainly a game plan that can be put together based on funding availability.
How about
I think we reword it.
reword it? I think you need to develop the plan, funding mechanism, and completion date.
That makes more sense.
And Michael, isn't this a behemoth endeavor?
It is. It could be multi-million dollars. I don't think we'll ever do it all at once.
So I mean,
It'll
wouldn't it be
be-
better to parse
2
it
or
up
3
and
million
come up with
pretty
something, and which I think you've been doing?
Yeah, and I think that to Henry's point, come up with an action plan. We tackle element X by 2025, element Y by 2026, and we put something like that together.
It'll help the mayor and council for budgetary purposes to know if you knew the map, then you know what needs to be funded each year for a component, depending on your discretion. Mayor and council, how do you feel about that? It's continuing, we've added it, we've changed it actually a little bit to develop a multi-year plan and address a comprehensive update of the.
Everyone's good.
Yep.
Okay. E,
Number one priority.
IT.
So this is absolutely ongoing. It's going to be a multi-year effort to implement a new ERP system. I've met with the city manager and the previous finance director before he left. Daryl, we think we have what I call is probably like a common sense approach to make sure that we're able to select a system and not have to bring in any sort of consultants or experts. I know that's a concern that we brought up here, that we're going to be able to make sure that we get to an ERP selection process a lot sooner than normally we would. So definitely ongoing, but I expect by the end of the year we're going to have a selected ERP system, and next year we're going to start the implementation process, which will be a 2-year process.
Okay.
That should be continuing then, because that's.
Continuing, 100%.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I would put a target end date of 2025.
Target date 2025.
That's fine.
I mean, because if you don't put a target end date, it's ongoing forever. And we've been talking about this ERP system since I've gone on council, so I would like to have a target end date of 2025.
And I would encourage the mayor and council, having the target dates is very helpful.
Yeah.
How about F, complete the Park Place expansion?
Park Place definitely is carry forward.
Attorneys.
Carry forward.
I thought you finished this one.
I did too,
He finished
but
G.
when I checked this morning, it wasn't done.
You know, maybe we put a date on that, like, because that's a huge project.
It is a big
Maybe, is it 2028? Is it 2029? But at least we have something that when we look at this, we're not like, what the hell are we doing?
Those dates are allocated in the project plan, but there'll be some updates about its viability as well.
Now that our money's gone to another city, right, Chris? No, just kidding.
Not gone to another city.
So do you want a date in there, or?
Time.
It's a great suggestion. It's just a milestone. I mean, it's supposed
If
to
we're
be
going to put a
biblical.
date on there, we should pull it out of the project plan, because those dates, the benchmarks are all in the project assessment.
Fair
Remember
enough.
what the next,
Change
Yeah.
the development, the $12 million design allocation, and now the phase one.
Put project
Run
dates.
through CDC.
What I want.
That design piece is done in 2025.
So if we want to put the date, I think we should break it down between, completion of design and then construction. So we don't have any funding for construction. We could put a date for tentative completion of the design. It would be tentatively, it's 24-25.
So design completion 24, 25, and then put working on, I think pursuant to the mayor pro tem that we have to go back to the plan for the date. I'll remember that one. The council in a good spot with that?
Yes.
Okay. G, Public Works. This one comes up a lot.
We need a date.
25?
This is
24.
This is carry forward.
24.
Design is underway, and we expect the construction to take place next year.
24.
So
We're
just
doing
here-
this meeting in the pool.
Is
Inner tube next year.
Is it,
Next strategic
is
plan
it
in
the
the
goal
pool. That
then
would
to
be-
start construction in 2024?
It is.
Yes.
It is the goal
I've
to
done them
start
in baseball
construction in
stadiums
year
and hockey arenas.
2024.
So do we put that in here?
It's been
Yeah.
really interesting.
Not December.
Construction to begin
First
2024.
part of
Finish.
24.
First quarter.
So
First
Credit
quarter.
cards.
first quarter 2024.
Fiscal quarter.
I'm confirming there's no holidays for you now this year. You can already see it. Mayor and council, we're good? I've got construction to begin first quarter of 2024.
Operation Waterway.
First quarter of 2024. Well done, Carol.
So if I get
It's
it
in
done-
writing now. It's in writing.
It's in writing now.
Why is this
Have the money?
Just so we're clear.
And there's a reward.
I'm thinking of that
Yeah,
sentiment.
that's the
Item H.
Wait.
Hold on.
Before we move on,
I'm sorry.
we're going to start a project we don't have funding for. Is that the plan?
We can't do
We
that.
do have funding for it.
Do
We do have funding.
Do we?
Do you have? I'm assuming
We
you
also,
have.
in addition to
Fund
what,
this thing.
in addition to what the city set aside, we've also had some corporate parties express interest. They haven't formally come forward, but they've said they will
Let's just be realistic
donate.
about building things we don't have money for, and understand that even once it's up and running, it's $1 million of staffing and employees
Find
and everything
funding.
else. So it's a long-term plan, and I understand you want to get it
The
done,
money
Carol,
is
I
there.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
But we also have to be fiscally conservative with this money that we have, right? So let's make sure, before we say we're gonna start building something, we understand how we're gonna pay for it.
We
Did you change your name?
Where were you when I was saying this before? I'm glad you've come around.
It's only a couple minutes.
Discuss
That's
finance.
right, you were.
A couple million short, apparently, in
million short.
capital, but then
Yes.
there is the ongoing
And
deficit.
that's only if we want the King Ranch package. It's
Right.
fine. It's just fine.
So we've added that, council member. Discuss funding. Item H.
Oh my
determine
God.
future team
Can
Senate.
we put a date on this one?
So I have
We
H.
determined it.
I have H, but I'm wondering if the council wants to do some sort of goal about completing all of the projects within phase one instead of these all being separate of rec park renovation. So instead, this might say complete projects within phase one of the recreation park renovation project.
Perfect.
I like that.
So we'll
Because then it-
scratch that and put,
So you'll say, so instead of determine the future of the teens, you're gonna say complete all projects within phase one of the recreation park renovation
phase one.
project.
By what date?
So we're,
Of
what are we
parks.
in now? We're in 23,
renovation.
20, end of 25?
End of 25?
Yeah.
It's just grass.
Renovation.
By first quarter, by first month of 2026.
Is that
Oh,
park
now she's
renovation
squeezing
project
it over.
timeline?
Recreation park,
Parks.
renovation project.
Renovation project.
There's 5
Okay.
projects within there.
First quarter of
2026.
2026. Okay. See, now this is coming to life. Dates, times, and places.
I'm gonna get that money.
Okay. Item I, Public Works.
Yeah, this is, we have 2 projects on El Segundo. Both of them are awarded. It's a matter of time for completion. And I think we should consider this project done because it's just a matter of time before it gets implemented.
Okay,
Mayor and council.
sounds good.
But they're
I
doing
approve
the
that road right
Segundo
now.
Boulevard as we speak.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep, cross it off.
drive down El Segundo Boulevard.
I know, I just
That's
washed my
right.
car and drove down there.
Item J, adopt and implement the Recreation Park Master Plan Guide.
That's
Well-
what we already just kind of.
Yeah, this I think you would take
You
off.
just take that off.
Take
Yeah.
this off.
Take it off because it's
Okay.
morphed.
Okay.
Oh my God, K doesn't make sense.
How about K?
That's also been done.
That's also done.
Yes, that is complete.
Mayor and council, you're good with
Does that
that?
include the shuttle service?
Yes, so we're actually, so that's Lyft, so it's the on-demand for the seniors, the beach shuttle, and then we're going to be coming to council for a potential pilot of bringing back the lunchtime shuttle with an expanded service to some of the city facilities.
Quick aside,
Yes.
great opportunity for you guys to serve up a win in terms of what you've been able to do for the seniors. There's a
Yeah.
little video with some elderly people
Sure.
using the service.
Okay. Yeah.
'Cause it's
Would a discussion about implementing the master bike plan be within this? Because on planning commission, I've seen the bike plan be talked about.
I
And
don't
when we
know
get
who
to doing the
houses the
roads, we'll
bike plan.
get this Sharrow or whatever it is.
no, it's separate.
I was going to add an item on here. Local travel in theory incorporates bikes because it has the idea is it allows for e-bikes in there. So I was going to add that at the end of it.
Yeah, maybe add it.
Micro-mobility type of.
Because we have $900,000 allocated from
would
from
be
Metro
public
to implement to be the
Public
pilot
Works.
for that.
Yeah.
Given that half the youth in El Segundo has an e-bike now.
So, can I step back for a second? What I'm hearing is the mayor pro tem is suggesting a new goal. Would you repeat that for us?
Implement the local travel network pilot program. It's already funded from Metro.
Implement the travel network pilot program. implement the local.
It's called the Local Travel Network. It's got signs of a turtle on it.
How about the overall program, too?
No, not the overall one, just the local one.
No, just
Already funded.
No, the local one is funded, though. The local one has the $900,000 allocation for it.
Can you
Oh,
write
yeah.
bike lanes in there so people know what the local travel network
It's
is?
got symbols. The sign has the symbol to
Oh, I
show
know
it's
what
included.
it is. I'm
Yeah.
saying when someone else reads this who's not in the room,
Oh.
they'd be like, oh, we're finally get the bike lanes we've been talking
So
about.
should we, parentheses, bike lanes?
Saying be explicit about what
Okay.
we're talking about.
Bike
You know what
lanes.
it is because you deal with
But
that
the
world.
public
Okay.
won't know.
Okay. Item L,
Oh,
Jose?
Sorry, apologies. Ongoing, there are several items that are incomplete on the technology master plan, as well as items that I'd like to add as part of my assessment of, the team that I've inherited 8 months ago. So
No.
definitely ongoing.
No.
Several items completed, but
No.
several more to cross off the list.
And then one of the components, the sub-portion of this, was how do we use technology to improve safety, police, fire, like where, because that's the thing that, Drew, that you had mentioned about bringing new technologies, looking at opportunities to enhance our safety and transparency.
Chief's already started that process. We had a public safety task force meeting yesterday with Mayor Pro Tem, Daryl, Chief, and Mark, and you're going to be, I think you said late June, some of those technologies for consideration.
But I think we need, for transparency perspective, let's put that in there.
Okay.
So people are aware what we're doing.
So include public safety,
And yeah,
okay?
Wouldn't that go back up to the goal related to public safety, goal 2?
yeah, well, it's the implement, what is it, which,
Oh, I see what you're saying. It's a technology
It's
project.
L.
Would that be
Yeah.
one of the?
I just want to make sure it's clear that we are focusing not just because we have the ERP system in here.
Public
I mean, maybe this is a bit redundant because you should always be looking at your master plan. Maybe it's identifying those core systems, because we already identified the ERP system somewhere up here.
Maybe we add that to attachment B here.
Maybe it's,
Let's add it to attachment B.
Yeah, it's kind of redundant because you should always be updating your master plan. But we have the two main things is we have the ERP system, we have the
Include
planning
public
system,
safety.
and we have the technology, the time and attendance and fire, and the HR system, and then we have the public safety systems. So those are the core 5 systems that we need to look at.
Okay. We're adding it to the attachment B technology. We won't be going through that today because we're doing but
No,
we're adding it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
But I just think we just need to identify the core systems that we are going to be addressing this year.
Okay.
They are the public safety technologies for safety, HR, the ERP, time and attendance for fire, and the building and planning system.
Okay. Any more dialogue there? Okay. Item M.
Ongoing, I'd like to see if the council has any appetite for possibly rewording this into something to deal with open data transparency. I know we were just talking about transparency, but we'd love to see something, if there's the appetite for it, for transparency and open data, or taking efforts towards a digital city hall. That's kind of like a good catch-all self-service for our residents, still maintaining that customer service approach though as well. But that's something I feel in today's days, probably digital city halls a little bit still accomplishes the goal of them, but really gives us kind of a broader technology alternatives to accomplish that.
How would that be different than what, I'm just curious, I don't know, from Granicus and the website we built,
Granicus is just one component, so that's obviously intranet or intranet and internet as well, both. But it also has to do with, it's not just one system. So Michael with the permitting, with OpenGov, there's also something Open Data Portal, something we haven't really explored here yet, but that's a component that's built into the new ERP system. So for fiscal transparency as well, there are open data portals that exist where we can publish any sort of financial records that we want, so that if someone in the community has a question, hey, I want to know what this was, it's a little bit more self-service. So it's not just one system, it's an umbrella of systems that make up all the departments.
I agree, we need to be more transparent about our financials and where the money's going and how we make money. Those are the common questions. People are like, why aren't the plunge done? We don't have any money.
Yeah.
So transparency about city financials, accessible on the
Transparency
website is a
about
good
city
idea.
financials, right here.
Maybe implement technologies to enhance transparency, digital city hall.
Has anyone experimented yet in the local government world with any AI in terms of AI bots that are really good? I've seen some companies develop some stuff really quickly that's amazing.
I've read some articles. I haven't read of anyone actually utilizing it yet, but I mean, that could happen next week. I mean, things like you said are moving so quickly. Okay. So I'm keeping a pulse on
That's
it.
what I thought you were going with the human touch part.
We just need to make sure as we move forward with the AI component and enhanced technology that we don't forget our audience and that we make sure that we're communicating to all audiences.
Okay.
Because, you know, your 60-year-old, well, I should say your 70 plus, probably aren't going to be as adaptive to
I'm not
AI
commenting
technology as your 24-year-old. And so we just need to make sure.
Fair enough. N and O. Jose, that's you.
Well, I was focused on we're on N.
N.
So we are in the process of, this is ongoing. We are in the process of expanding our GIS infrastructure to make it more accessible online. Again, this goes along with the theme of self-service for our constituents to have access to a lot of the GIS data that we currently have internally. So this is definitely ongoing.
Conversation, mayor and council, comfortable with that?
Is there a cost associated with that?
Budgeted cost, yes. Esri is the name of the software that we leverage, and it's standard software cost.
We budgeted it 3 straight years.
What's that?
We budgeted it 3 straight years, right? We budgeted, didn't get implemented once?
Yeah.
Is that the one? Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. O?
I think O is the clerk's office. Clerk.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have.
Oh, we're good.
Agenda management.
Oh, no, we're not. I finally, I read the committee report. We're in the process. We're 90% done.
Okay, I think we should put that. So.
Oh, no.
Let's put 90% done, so they know when they get the report that it's close. They can't be
Yeah.
out. Where is
Should
that?
be done within a couple months.
Okay, completion in a couple months. We'll put that too. And P, Public Works.
Continues.
P is carried forward. Public Works is coordinating with LA County, and we're making a lot of headway along this project.
Does this include Imperial Highway?
Yes, ma'am. Imperial Highway median, also a bike lane, also pedestrian access, and it'll be covered in tonight's council meeting.
So I think within this, there's multi-levels. So you got Imperial Highway, which is on a different thread to the beach, which is on a different thread to the
talking about
Greenway, Greenbelt versus the bike lane.
Right.
So there's this has
Yeah, a lot of elements.
there's several elements to it. We may want to break them down so that we can put some dates by them.
Suggestions, a create action plan by,
No, I'm just saying this P has a lot of elements to it.
Okay.
The number one is the improvement of Imperial Highway.
Right.
The second one would be the beach access, or the parking in the beach, right, and down Grand. The third would be the Greenbelt area along Aviation. The fourth would be the bike lane, right?
Okay.
So each of those will have very different dates.
Okay, so I put break out multiple elements with timelines.
And put a date.
Yeah,
date.
put the timelines
You can
there,
ask
so-
Elias what those dates are.
So I'll have to come back to you on this one, so you can give more detail for the mayor and council to expect to see more definition to it
July.
on P.
2028.
Okay, we finished with 4. Are there any new goals you want to put other than implement the local travel network, which is funded, including the bike lanes for clarity? Any new goals or any new strategies? Okay.
The only other thing, and I think we've done this, but you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, you know, capital improvement is such a huge hot button for us, right? Obviously, well, this is economic, all right. maintain quality infrastructure, yeah. You know, we got behind in our capital improvement, so how do we ensure that we don't going forward? Do we need to institute a really strong, like, rolling infrastructure plan that has, like, funding associated to that, so long-term planning, so we never get behind again? Or if we have to consciously decide to get behind?
So would that be creating a quarterly update?
I don't know, I mean, how did we get so far behind in our capital improvement? It's like we kept pushing it off without really understanding the consequences to it. So I think that we need to put some type of structure in place so that future councils are like, they have to consciously decide to get behind.
Didn't we do that at this last go-around?
I thought we talked about it. I
Joe
just,
talked about adding a separate.
Fund.
percent of the budget.
yeah.
Yeah, separate.
I just want to make sure it's a goal for us to establish a concrete, like a plan.
Okay, I think that's a good idea, but I'm going to leave it to you guys.
Carol, I think it was done.
Yeah.
It's a matter of
Where you
whether
write that
future
down?
councils can change it, but the money is going to be set aside for it on the budget.
Right, we just, yeah.
Scratch.
Yeah, I think we took a.
Are we comfortable that it already exists?
It's, yeah, in other words, we've already talked about, right, I know my finance department's up 5%. 5% reserve.
Okay.
Number 5%.
But I think, Carol, you're asking a deeper question to the department heads.
Well,
Don't let it slip.
Time out though, I think part of it is the question is like, well, why do we get behind? I mean, part of it is that we didn't line them up and knock them down the way we are right now.
Right.
When they came up, it was continue the next meeting, continue the next meeting.
That's it.
I think we've done a better job at lining them up and getting them on the docket, because obviously you got a little bit of work to do right now, Elias, so, yeah, ratcheting it up. So I think we've improved on that.
Yeah, for sure.
He does.
So you've gone through 4. In case you're wondering, you're right on time. So over, under, I would say on
You're
time.
going to go over if you keep.
Oh, perfect. Good transition to goal 5. There are 12, so let's start with A, finance.
So if I may take A and B together as I look at these, because they kind of overlap a little bit. And as I look at what was completed on the right side, they tend to be fairly similar. I think part of the discussion that I've been hearing here is how do we go about funding? How do we identify those? And so one of the things the city did a little over a year ago was a long-range financial plan that we have in our possession, and it'll do a 10 and a 20 year. I think we need to be more strategic about that long-range financial plan, that we're using it on a regular basis. We're getting back and communicating to city council and the community so that we can really use that tool to identify the CIP list and say, you know, here is a list, these are unfunded, you know, what are the funding opportunities, or do we need to enhance revenue? Does, you know, the Chevron agreement change the revenue stream 5 years from now? So that in that model, you're really updating it on a regular, ongoing basis. I think it's a valuable tool to be able to use. We used it in city of San Bernardino in the bankruptcy to get out of it. We had to have a 20-year pendency plan. I've used it in other cities. So I think I would redefine A and D to say, you know, take the existing long-range financial plan and continue to utilize it on a regular, ongoing basis to make key financial decisions, whether it is revenue enhancements, whether it's identifying ongoing million-dollar costs in a acquisition of a pool, all of those types of data information going in there and allowing us to use that tool as a planning document going forward.
Okay, so we've reworded it. Utilize the long-term financial plan and continue to use it to make financial decisions.
Yeah, because you're talking about fiscal sustainability and you're talking about long-range fiscal sustainability. And so knowing what, you know, that's going to, what is going to be the impact of various decisions. We would also utilize it in labor negotiations, saying, well, you know, if I do a 1% here and a 2% here, what's that impact? To kind of give you an idea, you know, we had a financial plan in one organization where once we completed the MOU and you take that out 20 years, That was a $144 million general fund swing in costs, because when you take that salary adjustment and then you assume some growth in future years, it's a pretty significant impact.
Okay. So I'm hearing continue unless the mayor and council
Yeah.
says different. Okay.
I think what we, to his point, I can't remember your name, is we know what our revenues are going to be. So how do we make sure we're putting reserves in place to handle future costs, as in CIP, MOU agreements? How are we making sure that our reserves are going up and down to accommodate those changes?
Okay.
Right.
Right. I mean, we've addressed part of the pension issue with, pension obligation bonds, but, there's also a principal and interest payment going out. And what happens when that drops off?
Yeah. Okay. If you're good, mayor and
good.
council. Okay.
Sounds like a great idea.
B and C are economic development.
So, B, we haven't really decided what we want to do with that. We had a big annual event, in partnership with our Economic Development Advisory Council. That doesn't exist anymore, so we're trying to decide whether or not we want to move forward with that. So I have to say, ongoing, I think we do want to move forward. It's on here. So we just have to decide what we want to do.
So I guess you're saying the plan has to be developed.
Well, I'm saying is, doesn't B and E kind of, isn't one solve the other? It's about the business incubator program, which we haven't started either. Is it, I mean, that is part of
yeah.
it's part of the strategy. At least it's maybe the initial strategy to get it going. So do you focus on that, and that's what you go after? Because otherwise, between the two of them, they're going towards the same goal.
We also, Lance, talked about, like, when EDAC went away, and you were on EDAC.
Should be.
There was a little bit of a void created. We have EDC, which is separate, and they're doing their thing. But and I know that you have an item tonight on the agenda that could provide some of this, but in terms of access to the business community that we used to have for so many years that was so solid, we don't have that anymore the way that we used to. So there was a void created when EDAC was disbanded. In my mind, there's no question. One of the ideas was an ombudsman. I hate that word. But I think we funded a city manager role, didn't we? To do outreach to the business community, somebody that's in the early stage space, that's networked, that can do the outreach. Because generally what happens is, we find out through LinkedIn somebody moved to town, or we get a lead, and then, I pop in and then make an introduction, and that's just not an efficient way to do this, to do outreach. So I think it's all, Lance, I think it's all fits together as just, you've done a great job with your department. You were the economic development person that got promoted out of that role.
Oh, I'm still in it.
You're still in it and doing other things.
Partially.
Well, would this?
Do we have,
Yeah.
Go ahead, please.
do we have a mechanism, like, the first point of contact would be finance, right? Because they're going to pull a business license. Is there a mechanism to say, hey, here's the new businesses that are registering in our town, and have we created an outreach component within the city and the chamber to go out and do a meet and greet? Like, maybe it's creating some kind of concierge program where a new business pulls a business license, and we determine this is and then we can start building back.
Yeah, so we are developing that. Every month we get a list from the new business licenses, and then we have an email drip campaign, which drip just means a series of emails, and we welcome them. There's going to be a welcome message, and then there's information about the city. We're working with community development on content that might be included in that, so that's just about to launch.
It's interesting as we're talking about it, does it have, I'm just going to make a suggestion, does it make sense to have B, C, and I believe we mentioned E bundled together, or do you see them separate? And is the mechanism to bring them to life, Barbara, that you have a council workshop on what are the 3 or 4 things to do? I mean, it's almost like you have them, but then if you had if you had the workshop, then it's what are we prioritizing first, second, and third, and are there some other subcategories? I'm making suggestions.
The only thing I'll say, the only thing that hasn't been decided that we talked about is there's some substitute for EDAC. But we've already funded a position.
Okay.
We've already approved 4 years ago in a strategic planning session, the Public-Private Partnership Accelerator. I know your office has made really good progress recently with one particular vendor, for lack of a better word. So to me, the only one that's missing is the EDAC thing. I mean, what do we do with that? Do we
Right.
let that go or not?
So B is an event, C is the economic development program, and E is the business incubator. And the business incubator, it's in progress. We are partnering with USC and a venture capital partner to sign a letter of intent. We're going to come to City Council the first meeting of August with that letter for approval. So we are moving forward with that. Part of that is the formation of a board. So we need to identify board members for this incubator, and that might be an opportunity to bring some key business people together and
Identify
some sort
board
of
members
organized
for incubator program.
group. So we might be able to build on that and go back up to B and do an event with that group in the lead.
Okay. So I marched down the E
Yeah.
to identify board members, and you have a program with SC, did you say, that's coming?
USC.
USC.
And
Also
it's called
program with-
Sunstone.
Also a program with USC. So that would be ongoing, plus these two categories. Is the mayor and I moved down to E since we talked about incubator.
Yeah, I don't want the council to think it's a done deal.
Yeah.
I, by the way, have had very little involvement in it, but this group Sunstone has almost a cookie cutter model that they bring to a city, and they're already launching in Irvine, Long Beach.
Sunstone Group. Sunstone.
Several cities.
Irvine and Long Beach.
So it's pretty much like a turnkey operation for us that they've come to staff with, and that's the one that's the most attractive.
Yeah.
Turnkey-ish.
Yeah.
They bring a lot of resources to bear, money,
Right. They bring that
advisors,
private investment aspect.
coordinating the cohorts, all that stuff.
Yes.
There's still work for us.
That's for new businesses, but do we need to address the lack of communication with our existing businesses right now? How are we communicating with our businesses besides EDAC? Maybe that comes up later in our meeting.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that's the important part of that item B, is that we have several different sewing circles that don't connect. And that used to have an agency to connect via EDAC, where the chamber could talk to people who don't participate in the chamber and all of those things. So that mechanism, that is still an ongoing strategic goal.
So we still are
Existing here.
participating in the Chamber of Commerce. We do have a business portfolio real estate newsletter that we send out to all of our business contacts once a month. But we don't have regular meetings or events. We'll have one-off meetings if we're working on different projects, like with Varda Space. We do interviews and video content, and we do get the business community involved. Impulse Space is another one that's on the docket. We're working with the Air Force Base. We're working with Michael Hackman. We did a video with him, the CEO of Belkin. So we have a lot of contact, but there isn't that. That's the missing piece, is that we don't have that formal group that gets together of business leaders.
And I think it's important that, I know that we had that big event.
How about
It doesn't have to be so grandiose.
The champions?
Yeah, like, I think sometimes when it gets too big to replicate. So maybe we create smaller sub-events that is actually manageable and implementable.
Yeah, I think the accelerator is going to be really sticky in terms of a watering hole, to Ryan's point, for early stage and people that are interested in that space, but that doesn't address the rest of the EDAC representation, which was mid-sized to larger companies, and EDC has some of that, but that's a smaller, potentially smaller group, and it
Well-
could be, yeah.
And I think Chris, or I'm not sure which one of you guys said earlier about, the landscape is changing, and we have a huge footprint of commercial land. How are we ensuring that they are successful, and how can we share successes or challenges and bring them together to say, with the changing workforce, and, how do we need to be open to listen to models of how, shared workspace or whatever, you know what I mean? I think we as a city, since we have such a huge footprint in commercial land, that we should be, on the forefront of getting people together to talk about it, and how can we.
So we're handling that now through series of videos. So we have What's Next in Workspaces, and that was Michael Hackman and the CEO of Belkin, because Belkin just came and did a big build out of a very modern workspace. So we're addressing those topics, but again, we could do more in terms of bringing people together in the same room.
Yeah, I think this mechanism is more specifically gauged to how do we do things that put people together in the
Yeah.
same room.
Well,
There's probably an item in there that I was going to have a line item later, but maybe gets folded into this, which would be empowering the city manager's budget, which include you all in this, to participate in and sponsor events where we bring together these companies that are beyond the early stage, but they're shopping for space, so they don't all shop for it in Launch Beach instead stay here in town.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how long ago, it was 4 years ago, we were up in the Bay Area.
Yes.
Courting business.
That's another-
You know, that's before they're even considering El Segundo. That's planting the seed, that's ideation with, that we are a real place to do business, so.
I was at a small conference in San Francisco, and there's a law firm there, a guy who was on my flight, and I was like, what were you doing in El Segundo? He's like, I have 20 clients in El Segundo. I was like, well, why are we just meeting now?
Right.
You know, why
Wow.
meeting now? Come on down.
So that could be maybe a strategy, is working with venture capital firms.
That's that role. If you get the right person that is in that space
They'll be doing that
already,
anyway.
they're gonna do that. They're gonna have the connections at the venture funds, the lawyers, all that.
So I think that's ongoing. Short version is, that continues.
We've changed it a little bit, develop a robust approach to connect existing businesses to each other, and conducting proactive outreach to grow our businesses. And then I heard the comment, develop formal groups of business leaders. That might be what you suggested, that some kind of a get-together of the business leaders in some group setting.
It's an option. I don't know if that's.
I'll leave that to the mayor and council, but that's what I kind of heard. If I modified it a little bit, and then I added what the mayor pro tem said about empowering the city manager's budget to bring business leaders together. It could just be, business roundtable with the manager's office. In addition to formally meeting with businesses, it's how often do you want to engage? It's just a matter of formalizing how you want to see that process look.
Okay.
They're both great, in my opinion, suggestions. And then we modified the business private incubator program to identify board members of the Sunstone Group, and of course we're working with USC in that. I'm going to come up to C, if I can, implement the goals and objectives of economic development, which is, I think, Barbara, you again.
Yes. Ongoing.
Okay.
Can't stop that one.
Mayor and council, any
Ongoing.
fine tuning of that? Okay. How about D, one of your core items, identify opportunities for new revenues, et cetera?
Did we do that?
We put that with A.
I think we kind of incorporate that into A. if that's
Oh,
okay.
we incorporated that into A, okay.
I thought that was completed with our
Yeah.
business license rehab.
Okay. So that would be ongoing.
Yeah, that was definitely one piece.
So,
The
yeah,
only other piece would be the sales tax.
I don't think there is a sales tax.
I know, but that would be the,
Well, there could be,
so that's ongoing.
could be a downtown,
Ongoing.
Well, we already
Still-
we already addressed that,
there
I
could be a
guess.
downtown business improvement district
Yeah,
down the
bid.
road.
There we go, yeah,
something like
bid.
that,
Yeah,
you know.
should be a bid.
A bid on aviation, a bid downtown.
the parking meters.
D is incorporated into A,
Yeah.
okay. Item F, facilitate the move of the Chargers. I would agree if it were the Dallas Cowboys, but I don't have any interest in the Chargers.
Already done.
Already done.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, what do I know? That's done, okay.
Signatures are on the beams.
That's crossing off then. How about G, encourage progress in the development of Smoky Hollow Business Zone?
It's just implementing the plan, strategic plan.
The Smoky Hollow specific plan will be before council end of summer, early fall, so I don't know.
So we've already encouraged it.
Wait, is there a new specific plan?
No, it's the.
Oh, downtown, no, cleanup,
This is
cleanup.
Smoky Hollow.
Yeah, yes.
We've already
Specific
initiated
plan
this.
to council.
So this says
Done.
encourage
Well, that's
progress, it'll
specific
be
plan.
before council, like, for sake of
I think it's been
Complete.
encouraged.
cleanliness, we can take this off.
Take it
Complete.
off.
Oh, you want to take it off?
Yeah,
Yeah.
done. That's complete.
Complete.
Yeah, they've just got tweaks going in. Does that have the small gyms change?
Yes,
Okay.
it will be proposed for your consideration.
For my,
There you go. Very political answer.
How does item H look? Collaborate with South Bay Cities. That would be the city manager's office.
That's a very vague thing.
It's a very.
I mean, we're doing that at the COG.
I mean,
on
that,
Santa regular
I'm doing
basis.
that via the City Managers Association and stuff.
Take it off.
City managers.
So we take it off then?
Yeah, I mean, it's just part of.
Part of your job.
It's part of the job, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
it doesn't have
Taking
to
it
be a
off.
strategy.
Okay.
It's life.
Okay.
So it's ongoing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Item I, it's, Mike, you've got the next, or I'm sorry, Barbara, you've got the next three.
No, Mike does.
I
need a Kevlar vest for the next couple.
I see.
Oh, yeah,
one.
no, these are all Michael's.
Mike, I'm sorry. Mike? No vest.
Yeah, these are ongoing. Both well, we could probably talk about it, Jay, but these are ongoing. Housing element's been adopted. We're bringing forth a couple of programs to council by end of summer. I could say item I is done. We've identified the areas, and we've adopted it in the housing element. Now we're just executing the housing element. So I'd argue I is complete.
But do we need
K is
to
done except for downtown, right?
Well, downtown's a separate.
No, but K, I would say K is downtown except for the downtown specific, or K is done except for the downtown specific plan, right?
Including the downtown specific plan. And K?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was just saying I could be complete. K is ongoing. Downtown specific plan is initiated, and that'll be before council by end of summer, early fall.
So Kay, how would you reword this then?
Update land.
Was it ongoing then? And it's really, as the mayor pro tem said, what's left is downtown?
Yeah.
Okay.
The downtown will be the only remaining item.
Downtown's only.
Program for council consideration.
Okay.
End of summer.
End of summer. I think that's important. We'll note that so you know.
Did we
End of
skip
summer.
Jay just because Eric's here?
No, we're gonna.
Now we're coming back.
I think that's the discussion point.
No, but before we move on to Jay, on I though, preserving the R1 zone and working, one of the things, we're battling against the state of California constantly on that. So how do we want to put that as a strategic goal to ensure the
Well, I think.
local control?
I'd say we've done it.
We have, but the R1 zone has a short shelf life in this state. So I think you want to say preserve the small town charm or whatever it is to describe it without using the phrase R1.
Right.
Hometown feel, small knit, close community.
But not too close.
Not overdeveloped. You gotta use different words.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what Sacramento's going to do tomorrow, but it won't be good for our city.
Yeah.
So we could change this one to be more reflective of just preserving.
Yeah, so change I, small
charm
town
of
feel.
Mayberry.
Say change I.
Why don't we mention single-family neighborhoods to the
Yeah.
extent that we can? Preserving.
So change I to say,
We're over here.
Preserving the single.
Oh, I'm sorry. Change I to say what?
Preserve the single-family neighborhood and small-town charm of our community.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, we're coming back to Jay.
I'll jump on your grenade for you. I've been pretty vocal about this. I believe that when we're looking at our housing element number one, if we look at our business strategy right now, which was relying a lot on commercial buildings, office space, creative office space, we've hit a wall there, and if we don't start to pivot a little bit, we're going to be in trouble down the road. So I think our job in this case is to get out of the way to see what's possible. I'm not sitting here saying that we should automatically say, okay, we can do whatever the heck we want east of PCH, but I think we have enough data points from our businesses over there to realize that we have to start looking at what is actually possible. So I don't know how we want to word that, what the exact next step is, because I also don't want to send a bunch of developers down the road only for us to say, well, we're going to say no to this anyway. So how do we open up that box a little bit and get some creativity going there?
Can I suggest that economic development has painted a picture of a housing need and a residential need for enhanced economic development that is not specific to ending at aviation or El Segundo Boulevard. So if we're going to make a strategic priority for them to look at housing, it should be a regional housing need, because those housing, that it would be foolish of us to not look at what Del Air or Inglewood or Hawthorne, what those housing pieces, because we have a mechanism to work with them on those housing pieces through the South Bay Regional Housing Trust. That exists for this exact reason. So there's a mechanism that is broader than our city limits here to address a housing need. So if we're going to empower them to do a study, I would recommend that we equip them to look at the entire area where people would commute from. Because people who are going to just go work at a business over there are not going to necessarily exclusively look within our city limits.
So I am interpreting that to say engage in a dialogue about regional housing east.
Yeah, I think Lance has a question.
I'm sorry.
Okay, I understand what you're saying, Chris, but are we not addressing what their presentation was last week and what I just said?
I just think that's dead in the water. It's gonna, I mean, it would be leading developers down a road that is going to. The voters have rejected that every single election. So
Actually,
if we go
I don't
off
think
on
the
a
voters
loophole,
ever voted on it.
It is a topic in every single election, and the candidates who say they will put housing east of PCH lose every time.
I got you, but I still think, hey, why don't we put it on the ballot then?
Well, I think
I'm fine with that. You want to have a community vote?
You don't want to do land use.
You don't do land
I
use by
understand that. That's why
referendum.
I'm saying
But
is
I
if
think
we
it's
don't
also
look at
important
what's
that we
possible, we
understand
don't even
the
know what we're voting down.
consequences, the long-term consequences. Like, we haven't explored, like, everyone thinks, oh, it's more housing, it's more housing. There's long-term negative consequences that we need to make sure that it's clear. You know, you have, I mean, the good thing is with our new business license that we now charge $150 for every unit. That's going to save us a little bit. But you build a 1,000-unit complex east of Sepulveda, you're going to have inner domain. We need an elementary school.
I
Boom.
don't think anybody's talking
Less and
about
less
that.
revenue.
I think what the report states is they're looking for is that those businesses need some kind of attainable housing for their people. So if it's
But
mixed.
it doesn't have to be within our city limits, is what Chris
Okay,
is saying.
so then we sit with a bunch of empty office space and collect no tax revenue anyway.
So
That's what we're having. We're going to have a bunch of empty office space. We already have it. And it's going to get worse.
Why don't I think compromise is just, we study it. To Chris's point, city and region, both. And we look at what is the fiscal impact, because we never have really done that. I mean, my biggest concern has been 98% of the city's revenue comes from commercial. So for
Right.
every parcel that you rezone residential, you're
Losing
at a
money.
loss. Unless we find a creative way through developers where they're going to fund that in perpetuity somehow. I have no idea how something like that would work. And Mark's
State law says absolutely.
can't do that. So, but we have never, not in the 7 years I've been on, we have not studied what the impact would be, what the demand is at the city and regionally, to your point. If you listen to somebody like Wally, who's been with the COG in government and research for 30 years, he cites a study saying that recently there are 1.2 times the homes available as there were unhoused people in LA County. It's not really an inventory issue, it's an affordability issue. So, let's actually get to the answers and figure it out. So, yeah, I've been resistant to that idea of housing east of PCH when I ran and on council, but I think I think it's responsible to study it and look at what the dynamics
That's
are.
all I'm saying. I'm not saying zone the entire east. I'm saying let's look at what's actually possible. And if it doesn't make sense for us to do it, then let's say no. But we don't even know what's possible yet.
Michael had
Just a quick commentary. There is an effort through the COG that Wally's team is heading up a study funded by the state that has identified a site east of PCH and in Smoky Hollow south of Grand that they are doing a feasibility analysis for residential projects in those areas geographically. And so without committing our local resources in us having to do the legwork, as long as we can keep tabs on that, participate, and provide information and report back to council at a later date. I'm not sure where they're at timing wise. But
This is a developer, Michael, that's actually looking at a real.
the South Bay COG.
Oh, the COG. Why are they looking at our?
Why are they do
They're
land
looking
use
at
studies
the
in
entire region, and they've identified 2 sites, and they're looking at every city, so they've identified 2 sites.
This is that relatively new regional planner guy that.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
So
Yeah.
my issue is that, if you say, okay, we're going to put a strip of land to go residential, who's going to play God and determine which land it is? Because the minute you put one, the neighbor over there who didn't get that reward is going to sue you to say that's not fair. So it's like you have to be careful.
I'll only
The door you
counter that if we don't look at it and we don't understand it, when the state tells us we have to do it, we won't be prepared to exercise whatever local control we have. And so from my standpoint, I would want to know what's the capacity of our local control. So when we have to do it, These are the levers that we can pull and adjust. And so unless we study it and understand the financials behind it, we just won't know. And then we'll be behind the 8 ball when the state passes legislation. We'll have 3 months from October till January after the governor signs the bill to scramble and put something together. So I just say we should at least understand it, so that when it happens, because it will happen, I don't know when, but the direction that our legislature is going, our hands are going to be tied. They already will be tied in 16 days from now, allowing it on commercial corridors if it meets certain criteria. That includes east of PCH.
It's too close to the refinery.
So I just want to be prepared for those things.
Maybe it should be we scratch this and create a new one based upon the dialogue that I think the mayor included as a compromise, and correct me if I'm wrong, it would be engage in a fiscal study about regional housing east of Pacific Coast Highway. Maybe I said that incorrectly.
Yeah, feasibility study.
A fiscal feasibility study.
Yeah, and I'm not so sure if I want to just rely upon the COG.
No.
I want to do our own.
They're definitely looking at it from a particular angle, so I think we have to have
well,
our own
someone's pressuring.
lens. Yeah.
And then take the mayor pro tem's
someone who
comment.
owns specific land.
Just know, when we hired consultants to help with our housing study, and they decided where the housing
regional
overlays would
housing
best be
east of
placed,
PCH.
not a single property was that side of PCH, because there are no amenities. They didn't think people would want to build there because you can't walk to a shop, a convenience store, what have you.
School.
Yeah, so it's going to be a long-term plan. We might need the amenities first. It's not just about saying you can build housing. There's other things involved with that, and it's all going to have consequences. But I agree, we need to have the conversation.
That's all. Got to start somewhere, that's all.
Well, I think we've added it here, Mayor, if we can.
Can we put in some scenarios in there, Michael? Like, if we're going to do a study, what if one of the PCT towers came to us and said, we don't have the demand we used to have, we want to convert to the residential, we figured out the plumbing infrastructure and all that. I think we should, if we're going to do a study, we should look at some real-life scenarios. So to your point, we can say no if we're prepared to say no because it doesn't make sense. Or, okay, we found a solution forward. But I think we should look at, maybe leverage COGS data if it's relevant, but then look at our specific scenarios.
But we also have to look to Ryan's point about the amenities. Do we have the school footprint to handle the added? Because people always say, "Oh, it's going to be the young people without kids." No, those people have kids.
It's not just schools, it's police, it's
Police.
fire,
Fire.
it's
Teachers.
everything
It's
we pay
Parks and
for.
Recs.
It's going to get more expensive, and if our tax base shrinks, then that's not a sustainable business model, guys.
And one other thing you're going to have to look at is districting, because we will be hit with just redistricting. So it won't just be 5 of you from the west side. It would now become a east and versus a west council.
Yeah.
Build more pools and more libraries.
There you go.
More libraries.
Everybody gets a library in their district.
So I believe, Mayor and members, we've captured this item, which we started with as
Should we create?
item J.
Part of that, I think we as a council need to come up with a plan on how to implement that study, and do we create like a task force within ourselves?
Council
Because I
discuss
really
how
do
to
not
implement
want to
study.
rely upon the COG.
Council.
Why don't we ask Mr. Allen to come forward at a future council meeting with an outline of what that
Okay.
study would
I
include?
think we come back at a later date.
Okay.
Okay. Our last item.
Well, but a part of this though, right, is this isn't just for our internal study, right? This is making it having an interaction with economic development, right? This is they're a piece of this, right?
Right.
I mean, this ask exists in there to make a priority of a 501c3's efforts to support economic development.
Yeah.
So is that included in this goal?
No, that's a
I
good
presume
point. That
it
should
is.
be one of the stakeholder
Okay.
groups without.
Yeah, because they're only looking at from their lens.
Well, of course, right? Our
they're not
job is to
looking
build
at
a
the
city.
lens
Their
of who's gonna
job
pay
is to
for
maximize economic development. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a complementary but not synonymous goal.
Yeah.
But
Did you include?
Yep, we've got the
I hope
specific
it's break
scenario
up
staff to
by-
come back to
And
council.
economic
Won't have a
development
housing
input.
shortage in LA County.
In the
Economic
county
development
housing
input.
trust.
anything with letter V
We
is
got
to
to
put us
figure what our role's going to be with
Hold
that.
on, my whole
Can't
life.
just
I
talk
just
about
think
our.
Well, at the end of the day, this was
I'm
quite the
sorry.
lively topic.
Automatically take it.
Yeah.
Enjoy your time at Mira.
So
We didn't.
we're on.
Did we do K and L?
K's done.
We did.
L's done.
Done?
We did L. You
Yeah.
can mark it up.
The completed one.
Yeah.
Yay.
Is that all of them?
Guess you don't want
Yeah, L was addressed earlier, that was that.
L was, yeah, we attached that form of that on goal 4 with the municipal code. Because we did a part of the admin code and license tax in the last year, but the municipal code we put for goal 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is put goal 5 on the
Can I add
board.
one more goal 5?
Absolutely.
piece? Is that because we are now contracted with a lobbyist, something that was a strategic priority 4 years ago, but got crowded out in the pandemic era, was figuring out how to work with other low-tax cities like Lomita to make a long-term push or find a long-term strategy into potential property tax reallocation, which is a 10-year fight.
Huge
But
lift.
for no-tax cities like us that are only getting 6 cents back, subsidizing wealthier cities that are getting 14 cents back is something that before we didn't have horsepower for it. We have a lobbyist we're already paying, $48,000 a year for. When he's not doing Hyperion work, he can work on that.
It's a great, yeah, we had that on the strategic plan, 3 years ago, 4 years ago?
So the goal, Mayor Pro Tem, is to use the existing lobbyists.
To use our existing lobbyists to explore the possibilities for property tax reapportionment.
For property tax reapportionment.
Does George
Property
Dugnagian
tax.
have any kids we can wheel out? Didn't he do the last one in 83 or whatever?
Well, there's a name I haven't heard in a long time. Reapportionment. We've gone through the goals, so congratulations. You really have.
We have just that last attachment B, technology projects.
What Daryl had asked me to do, unless the council sees it
I
different,
wasn't sure we'd have time.
we won't have time for it, and it was not really technically a part of the 5 major goals.
Well, I
and
think we've
priorities.
identified the 5 core functional things we need anyway.
So my
How
guess,
much time do you need for the dots?
I think the dots themselves to be out by 4:30 is going to take them at least 10 minutes and then follow through.
4:30, we're trying to get out?
Yeah.
I'm trying to move them by 4:30 so they can do the thing, but I'm going to leave it to you. I'm
No,
trying
we've
to
already
stay to the
identified the
schedule.
5. He knows what the 5 are.
Okay. Mayor, if that's okay with you, here would be the next scenario. So I want to make sure we don't feel rushed. The technology piece, I think we've covered, but in theory, Jose, unless you see it different, you're working on the top 5 that we've talked about already.
Correct.
That would be my answer. So the second piece, and the last most important piece, and that's the funnest piece, is you've done so much work today on the goals. You've added some, you've eliminated some. So now you're at the point where we're going to give you 2 red dots apiece, and you're going to prioritize what your number 1 and 2 is. And that becomes the new 10 goals that refreshes the existing plan you have for 2022 to current.
Can you just
which is-
quickly go through the 10 that we currently are working off of?
Absolutely.
Red one.
They're on this board.
Red, Daryl.
They're all in red. So under goal 1, it's the enhance the proactive community engagement program and inform the public about city services programs and issues. That was one strategy. The others were address quality of life issues pertaining to homelessness, graffiti, noise, and crime, etc. The other was conduct an analysis to include a responsive coverage study to determine the best and most effective response model for fire. Now, these were the 10 you created in June of 2022. Determine optimal staffing levels required to deliver unparalleled city services and maintain city council policies to make sure they're fully implemented. Identify parking solutions throughout the city, throughout the community. Implement the community improvement plans for parks, recreation, city facilities, library, Park Vista, senior living facility. In the last 3 of 10, conduct a long-term financial analysis to identify ways, etc. Develop a robust approach to connecting businesses to each other and identifying opportunities for new revenues. Those were the 10 that we talked about, that were of the 51 goals, you selected 10. And what you did today was to complete or continue or create. So the reality of it is staying within the model of 10 more priorities or the same or different priorities, you get an opportunity to update the plan. So it's a refresh of the existing plan. So that's why you would have 2 dots apiece.
2 dots.
So 5 times 2 is 10, 10. Now you can always say, Henry, can we really have an extra 2 dots? And I would say probably not from a city manager standpoint, but only you can know the capacity and infrastructure, but the city manager and I have chatted about trying to maintain 10 more.
Can I just interject real quick? Just on the dot exercise, there's a good possibility that you may double up, that several of you may select the same item as your top priority. In that case, we may distribute a second round of dots, so you can pick some more. We'll do as many of those rounds as we need to until we get to the 10. So with that, you're ready to start. You can choose any item.
They're reprioritizing, so they could pick the same red ones, or they could pick different.
Do we have the dots, Stephanie? They're passed out. Okay.
All eyes are on you.
Off you go. I'll tell you what happened this one time. I've never seen it happen in 30 of these. The council members got together and said,
spin them around
double
first.
up, we can have
Yeah.
individual. I've never seen it.
Spice it up.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
How are we prioritizing as a strategy to?
No, I already know what I want to do.
You're looking at goal 5.
don't
It's
get
all of them. There's no. You're going to go.
Anything across all of the goals. Well, carried over.
Mark, I was going to tell you.
But you can go anywhere you want with the 2 dots.
Oh, yeah?
New or old.
Okay.
It's doing pretty good.
Trying to stay with 10.
Feeling a lot better.
Carefully,
His main concern right now is that his wife Jane talks too loud.
I didn't recognize the intensity of the housing issue. I mean, when the mayor pro tem was talking, I was going, I never really thought of it there because I'm not out in this area enough to understand its complex.
I had contacted him a couple of times.
And it's a different school district.
Oh, yeah.
And
Oh,
it
yeah.
really creates some monetary issues. Redistricting costs up to.
He said you can call me now.
300,000 because
So
easy.
yourself you have to hire all these.
Hi.
Hi.
Right.
I just sent you an email. Don't worry.
Oh, yeah. It's made with.
No back.
If that happens,
Okay.
Will you send me your notes so I can have them?
Not even.
You guys are done?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're going to work it all up.
I think I saw.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's usually what I.
Absolutely.
About.
Once we redo it, absolutely, you will have it. But my protocol was I'll be going to Daryl, but I'll tell him to make sure.
Right now,
Yes,
only
that'd be
PDF.
awesome.
Yeah, you'll have it.
Perfect, thank you, sir.
What you're going to miss unless you have to go back is they're going to say, this doesn't come to life unless you create the action plans. So when they create 10, it's who, what, when, and where.
Okay.
Or it doesn't have value.
Right.
It's through Area G.
I imagine Torrance drove it.
I think so.
Had issues with it.
Yes.
I think they did great.
Soraya Sutherland was very involved in it. She wants us to use that exhibit and not have any difference. And
There's a wall, yeah, behind some.
okay, and so then I
Did Lance do his dots?
from the chief. They don't want to.
Okay.
So we
You gotta get through it, but overall.
It
is available. I sent you the document.
Oh, you did want to check
So
it out?
they could not do it on their little iPad. So if I'm involved on Rebecca Reddick, not Elizabeth, I save it to my emails. Here they have to create an account.
Yes.
I think it's
Yes.
See what'll happen, Daryl,
I know.
is that we're going to recommend that.
They have to create an account in Adobe.
You got to say, an
I know what
action
they
plan, goal 1, priority A, the department, the timeline, the funding, and when it's going to be done, or they're going to say, yeah, we'll have to do that. And that's attached to the report, so they go,
No, I already know what the issue is.
when to see it.
Came to my mind.
Or it's going to go into
Yeah, I already know the issue because
It'll always work when you do it.
There's
And
a-
that's the best tool for the managers. I always tell them,
it's funny. I
come back and I
literally
finished
just
everything.
this morning. So
Or
I'm trying to
they can
centralize
say whatever they
everybody on this Outlook app. For the,
Oh, they were perfect.
It's really nice
For the condensed time frame in the conversation, they were perfect. They're done? Okay, we're coming back.
is to, they need,
We're coming back.
They do, they don't have a laptop.
We're coming back. Let's come back so we can be done by 4:30. 4:25.
they need email it to, they need to get it to this mail.
Where'd the mayor go? I'm missing the mayor. What do we got?
Email me that.
We'll talk about it. Because I
Okay. Okay.
Because the simplest thing is that they have a watch command to do that.
Okay, let's come back. I'm missing the mayor.
Would be
someplace.
Missing. All right. Are we in the wrap-up phase?
We're in the wrap-up phase.
Further discussion. Yeah, I'll send them.
Do we have anything else to do today?
Closed session, council meeting. Nothing. Really.
We got 10. Okay, I'm just waiting on the mayor and we'll be out.
Well, Chris, you're the mayor now.
He wanted taxes. I said no.
Okay, Mayor, with your permission?
Yeah.
Okay, here's the good news. It's amazing. You've picked 10 dots. So I gotta tell you, when you look across the board, you can already see you're continuing 4 of the previous items. 4. So you're continuing to enhance the proactive community engagement, address quality of life issues. This item here about the fire and the fire accreditation process. The long-term financial topic and the new opportunities they carry over, but you've got some new ones. And I encourage you to take pictures of these. You've got review the updated key performance indicators, the KPIs, expedite the onboarding process and reach out to broader scope of candidates, renovate the swimming pool. We're back to you, Elias. Projects, projects, projects. Implement the goals and objectives of the economic development program. And we added these 2 that came of new goals at the very end. Preserve the small town charm and single family neighborhood, and the engagement and the fiscal feasibility study about the regional housing east of PCH. So you've got a combination of previous and you've got new. You've removed some and you've continued some. So you've got consistency, but you've got to refresh at the same time. You couldn't have gotten better in 3.5 hours with the conversations you had in the time constraints you did with the level of respect and conversation you had. I myself was wondering, and I got to tell you, at 4:23, you were perfect. So carry that forward to the council meeting. Lucky for the Lakers tonight. We're going to refresh this document and put it in a manner formal to format it for Daryl. But we're going to add a new piece, and that is the 10 existing items. We're going to create an action plan. What department's doing it? What specific division is doing it? The funding for that, the timeline expectation for it to be complete. So there's a understanding that it just doesn't go off into the abyss. It's an action plan of the top 10 you want, and at your direction at any given time, you can refresh it again, or once you're satisfied with the update and figure out how that will take place, then you're ready to do it again. What a tremendous thing you've done. Just really, really, I got to say thank you.
Just real quick, Henry, in terms of assessing the department responsible and the division responsible, I'll do that with you.
Correct.
And the department head?
Correct.
And the E-team, okay.
Correct. At your convenience. And then Mayor, closing comments or with everybody else?
To Henry and Rhonda and everybody here, great job. I think we've had 3 different strategic facilitators over the years, and you did a great job in a very quick, short period of time. So let's give them up for them. Let's give them up.
Great job, everyone. Closing comments, Mayor, council members?
I didn't put a dot by capital improvement because we already have a cohesive plan and we've set a reserve for it. So I don't want anyone to think that it's not a top priority.
Yeah, I think, Elias, we're back to you. Michael, we're back to you. Yeah. You already see it. You can feel it in the air. All right, you guys, good luck tonight in your meeting.
Thank you.